Chapter 4677. Let's go. Lin Ling shook his head. He didn't think too much about it, but he also felt that after cultivating the three extreme breaks of the universe, he seemed to have gained a deeper understanding of the universe's Tao. The two walked in the direction of the gate. Along the way, Lin Ling transmitted his voice to Yu Yu and found out that everything was fine there. The Kirishin had also reached the vicinity of the island and moved to a hiding place in the southeast of the island. Emperor Yao actually didn't look for them. He probably thinks that Saint Guy is by my side, so he's been watching me. Lin Ling guessed. Lei Gong beside him had obviously been mistaken for Saint Guy by Emperor Yao. Lin Ling, although 3 years have passed and Emperor Shun and the others have relaxed their vigilance, we still have to be careful because Emperor Shun is very strong and can catch up to us in a short period of time. So, we must rush out of her territory. Lei Gong said to Lin Ling as they arrived at the gate of the Great Buddha Kingdom. Emperor Shun's Abyss Demon, Eye, is very powerful. If we want to escape from her sight, we have to use some dangerous places. Lei Gong, you're more familiar with the Tao realm than I am. Do you know any dangerous places nearby? Well, I remember now. It's about a day's journey from here. There's a place called the Fallen Gods. Those fallen gods are meteorites from ancient times. Even superior gods don't dare to go there. We can use that place to avoid Emperor Shun's Abyss Demon Eye. Okay, let's go there. The two came to an agreement, then walked out of the gate of the Great Buddha Kingdom and ran in a certain direction. They went all out and moved extremely fast. It was as if they were teleporting. At first, no one paid attention to Lin Ling and the others. But soon a god noticed it. Lei Gong, Lin Ling, and that mysterious person have come out. Chase. With the ancestral shaman of wind in the lead, the mid-level deities all rushed in Lin Ling's direction. In the beginning, they didn't dare to get too close and allowed Lin Ling and the others to leave, because they were afraid that if they chased too close, Lin Ling and the rest would flee back to the Great Buddha Kingdom. This would be beating the grass to scare the snake. He could only wait until Lin Ling and the others were far away from the Great Buddha Kingdom. At that time, Lin Ling and the others would not be able to escape even if they grew wings. They aren't very close. Unfortunately, Lin Ling sensed their intentions. He said to Lei Gong, "Let's not increase our speed for the time being. Once we're a certain distance away from the Great Buddha Kingdom, we'll instantly burst forth with speed. There's a chance we can shake them off." All right. The two of them slowed down and moved forward slowly. Behind them, the Witch of the Wind and the others frowned. They didn't want to scare away Lin Ling and the others, so they also slowed down. In the end, they even stopped chasing for the time being. As long as Lin Ling and the others were under their control, that was enough. Lei Gong, Lin Ling, they're out. At this time, a large number of experts arrived. It was the giant god White Tiger, goddess Tian Si, and the others. They're out. They're in the distance, just at the limit of our control. We didn't follow too close for fear that they'll discover us. The Witch of the Wind said immediately, "That's good." The giant god White Tiger knew the Witch of the Wind and the others' concerns. "Oh no, we've been tricked." Suddenly, goddess Tian Si seemed to have guessed something. They might have already discovered us. This is intentional. They slowed down to make us lower our guard, then suddenly burst forth with speed. We won't be able to react in time, and we'll immediately lose them. Damn it. The Witch of the Wind and the others' expressions changed. They immediately used their special abilities to check on Lin Ling and the others. Sure enough, Lin Ling and the others had all disappeared. Previously, Lin Ling was at the limit of their control. This place was the point where they could just detect Lin Ling and the others' tracks, but could lose them at any time. Of course, they were very confident that as long as Lin Ling did not discover them, they could continue to secretly follow him. But who knew that Lin Ling had already discovered them? Chase. Goddess Tian Si cursed angrily and immediately shot forward. Emperor Shun, Lin Ling has come out. Did you notice him? They had no choice but to ask for help from Emperor Shun. Lin Ling has finally come out? A voice suddenly sounded in everyone's hearts. It was very deep, like the low voice of a demon. Southwest. Then another voice sounded, pointing them in the right direction. Fortunately, Emperor Shun is here. Everyone was relieved and hurriedly chased toward the southwest. At this moment, in the southwest direction, Lin Ling and Lei Gong were both exploding with speed, passing through endless bare mountains. I think they should have noticed us by now. Lei Gong, it's up to you to open the void passage, Lin Ling said to Lei Gong. Lei Gong nodded and immediately activated his special ability, forming a huge vortex. During this process, Lin Ling also noticed that in the distant horizon, a large number of gods had caught up. As expected of Emperor Shun, he can still discover us, even though we have fled so far. Lin Ling secretly sighed. If not for the natural danger zone that Lei Gong had mentioned, they would not have been able to escape from Emperor Shun's pursuit. The people chasing us are probably still the giant white tiger god and the others. What a pity. If Emperor Shun was not here, I would really want to kill them, Lin Ling said again. Now that he had the universe's 3 extremes break, he was confident that he could kill some mid-stage mid-gods. All right, Lin Ling, coming quickly. At this moment, Lei Gong's voice sounded. Lin Ling looked into the distance. His powerful soul power could sense that the giant white tiger god and the others were chasing aggressively and were getting closer and closer. Sorry, I have to go now. After saying this with his soul power, Lin Ling entered the void passage. Bastard, that guy has indeed discovered us. Hurry up. Emperor Shun is now rushing over. No matter what, we have to stop Lin Ling and the others here. Moreover, Emperor Shun said that the direction that Lin Ling and the others escaped is a natural danger zone. It is a place that even Emperor Shun does not control. If they enter, Lei Gong, Lin Ling, and the others will completely disappear. Emperor Yao is also rushing over. Everyone, you must stop them. All the gods shouted angrily. Looking at Lin Ling and the others, they had already appeared on the other side of Lei Gong's void passage and were running madly again. When Lei Gong's method of opening the void passage was restored, they would enter the void passage again. In this way, they were even closer to the natural danger zone. However, the pursuers behind them were also getting closer to Lin Ling and the others. Moreover, Emperor Shun had arrived. A huge abyss appeared in the sky, causing the entire sky to darken. A demonic eye bloomed with supreme power, passing through time and space to suppress Lin Ling and the others. This supreme power was a demonic green light that seemed to be able to affect Lin Ling and the others. Get lost. However, Lin Ling walked the path of Mahayana Buddhism and was protected by Buddhist light. He shouted at the green light and blew it away. Not bad. Chapter 4678. After another chase, Lin Ling and the others finally arrived at the land of the fallen gods. We're finally here. Staring ahead, Lei Gong smiled. Looking up, it was pitch black as if they had arrived at the void of the universe. Lin Ling and Lei Gong stood at the edge of the void as if they were standing on the edge of a cliff. Rumble. In the distance, a huge meteorite was like the fist of a giant god, shooting into the distance and colliding with another meteorite. The explosion was earth-shattering, the collision of stars in the myriad realms. Lin Ling sucked in a breath of cold air. Those meteorites were so huge that they were more terrifying than any realm. They could be called a world of their own. Now, countless worlds were colliding. No wonder this place was so dangerous. Rumble. In the distant void, rumbles resounded incessantly, causing waves of ripples. The void continued to split open, and a storm swept out. If a lesser god was here, he would definitely be sucked into the void and perish forever. Even a mid-level god would have to act cautiously here. I heard that in addition to the collision of meteorites, there are also evil gods. They cultivate here and absorb everything. Lei Gong explained. Lin Ling nodded and looked back. He was surprised to find that in the distant horizon, other than Emperor Shun and the others, there were 2 strangers. The reason why he said they were strangers was because Lin Ling had met them once before, but he wasn't familiar with them. These two were Ning Qingxin and Lin Ling, whom he had met on the path of Mahayana Buddhism. Why are they chasing us? Are they looking for me? Lin Ling frowned, somewhat speechless. He guessed that the two of them were here to ask him for guidance. However, Lin Ling didn't need any guidance. He relied on the Buddha beads to obtain Mahayana Buddhism. Of course, Lin Ling wasn't too sure. Therefore, Lin Ling and Lei Gong ignored them and entered the land of the fallen gods. Rumble. As soon as they entered, a huge meteorite flew towards them at a very fast speed. When they got closer, they could see that the size of the meteorite was enough to cover the sky. The astral winds howled, as if one of the 9 prefectures had come crashing down. Break! Lin Ling let out a low roar. The third stage of the innate skill fusion was unleashed with an unparalleled punch. Boom! The meteors that were falling from above were smashed apart with a single punch, and a storm swept out in all directions. You bastard! Lei Gong had wanted to make a move, but when he saw Lin Ling blow it up so easily, he sucked in a breath of cold air. Lin Ling's body was simply too tyrannical. It was even more terrifying than the ancient beasts. Go! Lin Ling didn't say much. He flew forward with Lei Gong. Along the way, they encountered God-perishing stones. Lin Ling also kept punching. Rumble. Those meteorites were constantly being smashed by Lin Ling, and they were everywhere. Of course, these meteorites were actually the smallest. The exaggerated ones were 100 times bigger. In such a situation, even Lin Ling had to avoid them. He guessed that these meteorites came from the broken god world, or perhaps from the broken ancient era. In the ancient era, these meteorites were actually planes. Before long, Emperor Shun and the others arrived at the land of the fallen gods. However, when they looked around, they found that Lin Ling and the others had completely disappeared. My demon, I can't detect him here. Emperor Shun stood on the cliff and looked into the distance. Her beautiful face once again turned into the face of a fox. She was furious, incomparably furious. So many gods had been mobilized, and even she had gone out personally. However, they still couldn't catch Lin Ling. Damn it, Emperor Shun, they probably can't have gone far. Why don't we try our luck? All the gods suggested. How could they be willing to let Lin Ling leave? One had to know that under the Celestial Mountain, they had suffered countless deaths and injuries. All right, Emperor Shun was also unwilling to give up. He turned into a huge abyss and flew toward the land of the fallen gods. All the gods also spread out and chased after him in 2s and 3s. Rumble. However, before long, a huge meteorite smashed down and several mid-level gods were immediately smashed into pieces. They died without even making a sound. We must find Lei Gong Lin Ling. Emperor Shun looked around and ignored them. However, he was even more furious. Not long after they disappeared, 2 figures also appeared in the land of the fallen gods and looked into the distance. That man has entered the land of the fallen gods. Ning Qingxin, are we still going to chase after him? Shu Lin's sword immortal looked at Ning Qingxin and asked. Ning Qingxin gritted her teeth and nodded. If we want to get guidance, we have to be honest with him. But I heard that the land of the fallen gods is very dangerous. There are many variables. The Shu Lin sword immortal said with a frown. However, seeing that Ning Qingxin was still stubborn, he could only go along with her. However, he was suspicious of the mysterious man. This was because he also saw that the mysterious man seemed to be chased by many people, including Emperor Shun. Rumble. At this moment, Lin Ling and Lei Gong were traveling through the fallen gods at high speed. Lin Ling used the 3rd stage talent fusion. He did not use any magical powers. He destroyed everything with his iron fists. Lei Gong, on the other hand, had green lightning in his hands. He threw out a net of electricity and destroyed all the nearby rocks. There are too many of them. These fallen gods seem to be attracted here. There's no end to them. Lei Gong said with a frown as he looked into the distance. Indeed, but we'd better speed up. I think that Emperor Shun and the others have already entered this place. We have to go further to avoid their pursuit. Lin Ling nodded. Because of the continuous meteorites, their speed was slowed down. Master Lei Gong, follow me. Then, Lin Ling let out a low roar and used the earth-splitting technique. The bronze light appeared, making Lin Ling look like a giant in the sky. He took a big step and shot into the distance. Behind him, the thunder god hurriedly followed and sucked in a breath of cold air. In fact, he was stronger than Lin Ling. However, Lin Ling had many tricks up his sleeve. For example, he had never seen such a trick before because he was too invincible. Rumble. There was an ancient meteorite falling. Lin Ling did not slow down. He did not use any attack. He just crashed into it with his physical body. Rumble. With a loud boom, the meteorite that was as huge as a star was shattered. Just like that, Lin Ling opened a path in front, and Lei Gong followed behind. The two of them sped up greatly and disappeared into the distance. After Lin Ling and the others, Emperor Shun and the others were unlucky. Many gods were smashed to death by the divine meteorites, and their souls scattered. Emperor Shun and the others were stronger. The meteorites could not affect them at all. However, they were not going in the same direction as Lin Ling. So no matter how fast they could not catch up to Lin Ling and the others. Damn it, this place is a mess. After Lei Gong Lin Ling entered, it was as if he was swimming in the sea. Emperor Shun turned into the abyss demonic eye and searched everywhere. However, he could not find anything. At this time, cracks appeared in the void in front of them, and spiderwebs spread out. Careful. Chapter 4679. It's a god that cultivates with the help of the fallen gods. Emperor Shun frowned. The faces of the ancient great gods behind him changed. They had heard of gods who used the fallen gods to cultivate. They had heard that these mysterious gods had powerful methods. They could draw upon the power of the fallen gods to cast down a divine net. When the weak encountered the divine net, they would be instantly suppressed, and their essence, energy, and soul would be continuously absorbed. Most importantly, those who came into contact with the divine net would be affected by the illusion and unable to extricate themselves. Ah, not good. These tentacles are coming. Suddenly, someone shouted. Someone roared. Next, he was touched by the spiderweb. His whole body twitched as he entered an illusion. These tentacles are poisonous. They will be released when they come into contact with living beings. Then, a large number of needle-sized tentacles will pierce into the god's body and absorb their essence until the god turns into a dried corpse. Emperor Shun said indifferently, "However, this kind of evil god dares to show off in front of me. Die." The abyss behind her cracked open, and a gust of wind blew out. Green flame spewed out. Crackle, crackle. The entire huge spiderweb burned, and a series of screeching sounds were heard. Then, in the distance, a figure fled quickly. Trying to escape? Emperor Shun shouted again. A huge demon eye appeared above the figure's head. With a flash of light, a scream was heard, and the mysterious figure was turned into dust. Find them. If Lin Ling and the others encounter these evil spider gods, they will definitely be stopped. This is our chance. Ignoring the dead evil god, Emperor Shun shot into the distance. In another direction, Lin Ling and the others also encountered the evil spider gods. They all stopped and did not dare to approach. These are the legendary evil gods? Lei Gong had heard of the evil gods in the fallen god's void, but this was the first time he had seen them. Lin Ling looked in the direction of the endless cobwebs and saw a figure hanging in the center of it. However, at this time, the spider web began to spread like tentacles. Sky-splitting slash. Lin Ling didn't know what this thing was, so he didn't dare to be careless. After all, he also saw that there were many creatures hanging in the spider web. At this moment, they were all motionless. It was very strange. Rumble. The palm struck down as if it was splitting the heavens and splitting the earth. It was as if a giant had appeared in the void. It was Pangu. Swoosh. The entire huge spiderweb was cut apart, and green blood gushed out. Fortunately, it can be killed. Lin Ling heaved a sigh of relief and continued forward with Lei Gong. However, many spider evil gods appear in front of them again. They were hiding in the void and waiting for their prey to come closer. However, this time, Lin Ling and Lei Gong joined forces and finally dealt with one of them. Gradually, the two of them got closer and closer to the border. After a long time had passed, a cliff appeared in the distance. One could see the great earth on the other side. "We're finally out." Lei Gong and Lin Ling were delighted. Rushing out of the fallen god's land meant that they had escaped Emperor Shun's control. The two of them increased their speed and finally reached the cliff. Looking around, the land in front of them was still endless barren mountains. Ancient volcanoes were constantly erupting, smashing into the ground and burning continuously. The barren mountains here are even more ancient. Those volcanoes are so huge. Lin Ling shook his head and said, "Compared to the volcanoes, they were like two clouds of dust spewing out from the volcanoes." Boom, boom, boom. The lava spewing out from the volcanoes smashed into the distance. It was as huge as a star, and there were divine flames burning in it. To powerful gods, these flames were great treasures, but to weak gods, these flames were a disaster. If they accidentally touched them, it was even possible for them to be burned to death. "Let's find a place to recover." After that, Lin Ling and Lei Gong found a quiet place to cultivate. During this process, some gods also passed by and saw Lin Ling and Lei Gong. Fortunately, they were not Emperor Shun's subordinates, so they only glanced at Lin Ling and Lei Gong. Moreover, they sensed that Lin Ling and Lei Gong were not to be trifled with, so they did not dare to casually approach. There are countless experts in the Dao realm. With my current strength, I can barely walk in the Dao realm. It would be great if I could raise my realm or open my 8th Dantian. Lin Ling thought to himself as he cultivated. Now, he felt that he did not have enough Dao realm fragments. It seemed that he had to ask old Sangui for a solution. Thinking of this, Lin Ling entered the square prison. Ha ha ha, awesome. In the prison, old Sangui revealed his yellow front teeth and laughed excitedly. Obviously, the 3-day holiday had made him so happy that he forgot about home. "I haven't touched those for many years. The nuns are not bad." He crossed his legs and drank happily from a pot of wine that he had gotten from somewhere. "Are you satisfied?" Suddenly, a cold voice was heard. Clang! The wine pot in old Sangui's hand slipped and fell to the ground. He looked up and saw a cold young man standing in front of the prison cell. F***, this fiend. Old Sangui was considered a big shot in ancient times. He was carefree and unrestrained all his life and was not afraid of anyone. However, ever since he entered the prison, he was most afraid of this prison warden. "Sir, what can I do for you?" Old Sangui did not dare to slight Lin Ling at all and smiled obsequiously. "I want to ask you, I'm currently on the other side of the God's Fall Void. How can I get more Dao Realm fragments?" Lin Ling went straight to the point. "God's Fall Void? There are many places like that in the Dao Realm. By the way, you went to the Great Buddha Nation last time. This means that you're in the God's Fall Void near the Great Buddha Nation. However, there doesn't seem to be anything around here. If you want to get Dao Realm fragments, you can only get the Heavenly Prison Token. You can get Dao Realm fragments if the Heavenly Realm wants you to kill the gods." Old Sangui said, "Heavenly Prison Token? The Heavenly Realm wants you to kill the gods?" Lin Ling frowned. Yes, this is something that all the gods knew. Could it be that the Dao realm has changed after so many years? Old Sangui also frowned. "Let me see." Lin Ling took out the Heavenly Realm Dao realm fragment and began to check it. Only then did he realize that the Heavenly Prison Token was actually a wanted poster. As long as one killed the gods wanted by the Dao realm, they would be rewarded. Moreover, the reward would be more or less depending on the situation. To put it bluntly, being wanted by the Dao realm meant that one had done something that went against the laws of heaven and was not tolerated by the Dao realm. In other words, it was a violation of the universal laws of the Dao realm. These Heavenly Prison Tokens were also very strange. For example, they could kill some prehistoric giant beasts, destroy some secret realms, and even kill gods. Even if one killed the gods and caused them to waste the Dao realm protection, they would still be rewarded. If one killed the gods completely, the reward would be even greater. Chapter 4680. However, the Tao regression Heavenly Immortal did not say what conditions one would meet to be wanted. Of course, Lin Ling guessed that it was related to good and evil. If the evil was several times more than the good, one would be wanted in a heavy prison. Although I've killed many people in my life, I haven't killed many in the Tao realm. Lin Ling shook his head and did not think too much about it. Instead, he looked for the heavy prison warrant that he could accept. However, many of them were too far away, and Lin Ling had never heard of them. Lin Ling had no choice but to exit the Tao regression Heavenly Immortal and ask Old Devil. No, that's troublesome. After all, I entered the Tao realm a long time ago. Now that the heavy prison warrant has changed, it's normal. All right, what's around here? Old Devil revealed his yellow teeth and pondered. What's around here? It's a huge volcano. In front of the volcano is the God's Fall Void. However, there are many strange spider evil gods. Lin Ling said, Spider evil gods? I didn't expect them to appear again. Old Devil's eyes suddenly lit up. This is the unique environment of Godfall to cultivate the 7 breaks, 7 extremes godly net. It's a vicious method of using the poisonous net to refine the gods. Back then, when the 7 breaks, 7 extremes godly net divine ability was spread out, many ancient gods used this method to increase their strength. Although the speed is fast, the side effects are great. Later on, because too many gods died, the gods who cultivated the 7 breaks, 7 extinction god net all became heavy prison medallions and were killed by the other gods. Who would have thought that after so many years, they would appear again? But it's strange that they appeared again. Why didn't anyone kill them? This is a good reward. Hearing this, Lin Ling was also shocked. He guessed, could it be that so many years have passed that people have forgotten? I reckon that's the case. Back then, this spider evil god was famous for a period of time before vanishing without a trace. Now that it has reappeared, the deities naturally wouldn't remember it. In fact, if not for Sir's reminder, I might not have remembered it either. Old Third Devil nodded. Lin Ling hurriedly took out the Tao regression heavenly tablet and began to investigate. There were countless heavy prison badges in the heavenly Tao tablet, but Lin Ling was patient enough to find one in an inconspicuous corner of the tablet. The reward for killing 1 spider evil god was 1,000 Tao realm fragments. TSK, in the God Meteor Void, there are many spider evil gods. Even Lei Gong and I killed many of them along the way. What a waste. Lin Ling sucked in a breath of cold air. He was a little excited. By the way, sir, you must obtain a thread from the evil spider god. Only then can you exchange it for a Tao realm fragment. That thread is the 7 break, 7 extinction divine net. Furthermore, this thread will disappear very quickly. It must be nourished with divine essence within the time it takes 3 incense sticks to burn. Old Devil reminded. All right. Lin Ling nodded and left the prison. At the same time, he said, help me again next time, and I'll give you another 3 days off. That's great. Old Devil revealed his yellow teeth and couldn't stop laughing. He still couldn't forget the taste of being a nun. After leaving the square prison, Lin Ling immediately found Lei Gong and told him the news. No way. That ugly evil god can be exchanged for 1,000 Tao realm fragments? Are you kidding me? Lei Gong couldn't believe it. Don't worry, there will definitely be some. Lin Ling smiled and nodded. The more he thought about it, the more excited he became. If he killed dozens of spider evil gods, wouldn't he have tens of thousands of Tao realm fragments? In the entire Tao realm, the person who had obtained the most Tao realm fragments was none other than Lin Ling. If that's the case, we're going to be rich. Lin Ling, let's return to the God's Fall Void immediately. Let's wait a little longer. I think Emperor Shun's people are still looking for us in the God's Fall Void. Let's wait for 2 or 3 days until most of them have left before we go. The most important thing is Emperor Shun. She won't have the time to keep looking for us. As long as she's gone, the remaining gods won't be a problem. All right, the 2 of them cultivated under the volcano. After 3 days, They immediately rushed to the God's Fall void. Lin Ling glanced at the huge volcano behind him. He suddenly lifted a fiery rock the size of an island and majestically charged into the God's Fall void. Not long after they entered, they encountered a spider evil god. It was quietly floating in the void without moving. The surrounding meteorites were constantly shooting over, but it didn't seem to be attracted by the spider evil god. On the other hand, Lin Ling and the others encountered several waves of meteorites, but they were all destroyed by them. This spider evil god is indeed a special product of the God's Fall void. It's actually not affected by the meteorites. Lin Ling nodded secretly. He looked at Lei Gong. Then, the two of them unleashed their full strength and joined forces to kill the spider evil god. The spider evil god was like a spider hiding in the void, waiting for its prey to come to it. However, Lin Ling and the others had come specially, so they were already prepared. Moreover, Lei Gong was powerful. Although Lin Ling was an early-stage mid-god, his strength wasn't weak at all. The two of them joined forces and exhausted half of their strength before finally killing the spider evil god. Boom! Boom! Lin Ling carried the huge volcanic rock and violently smashed it. One had to admit that the flames seemed to be able to restrain the spider god's webs. It was much more convenient. A red thread floated out and dissipated with the wind. However, Lin Ling caught it and nourished it with his divine energy, not letting it disappear. 1,000 Dao realm fragments. Continue. The two of them looked at each other, their eyes filled with excitement. When others passed through the God's Fall void, which one of them wasn't careful? Only the two of them were the most excited. Boom, boom, boom. After a long time, on the other side, another spider evil god was killed. While they were killing the spider evil god, in another direction, a woman was completely entangled by the spider evil god's web. She couldn't move at all. Moreover, her vitality was continuously disappearing, and her face was constantly aging. Ning Qingxin. In the distance, a man shouted anxiously. He was the Shu Forest Sword Immortal. So scary. We almost fell into their trap. Let's go quickly. There are too many strange evil gods here. If I didn't trick that woman to go test them, we would have been surrounded. Even further away, a dozen or so gods were standing there, their brows all furrowed. I don't know where those two came from. Their cultivation realm is very high, but their strength is very weak. A woman said coldly. She was Goddess Xianxia. Hee. They said they were looking for a cold-blooded man. Goddess Xianxia lied to them and told them she was heading in this direction. They really did leave. Luckily, they were there to test the waters. Otherwise, if those evil gods appeared, we would have been surrounded. A god said coldly. It's their fortune to be able to test the waters for us. Chapter 4681. Without special means, any intermediate god would not be able to react in time and would eventually be entangled by the divine webs and die. Because at the very beginning, there was not a single evil god here. They appeared out of nowhere, and these evil gods were lured out by Ning Qingxin. Of course, she was also tricked into entering. This also caused Goddess Xianxia and the others to react and not rush over recklessly. Goddess Xianxia, one of them escaped. At this moment, a god beside Goddess Xianxia said coldly, "He actually escaped to the other side. But don't bother about him. If he dares to say something stupid, we'll kill him next time." Goddess Xianxia said calmly. She did not care about the person who escaped. At this moment, on the other side of the endless divine webs, a man gritted his teeth and shouted from time to time, Ning Qingxin. He was the Shu Lin Sword Immortal. Previously, he and Ning Qingxin had been searching for the cold-looking man. However, they met this group of people. They knew that this group of people was chasing after the cold-looking man, so they asked casually to see if they could find the man's whereabouts. In the end, a woman in the group pointed in a direction, which led them to move in that direction. They only realized that they were tricked when countless divine webs appeared. What angered the Shu Lin Sword Immortal the most was that this group of people tricked him and Ning Qingxin as if it was natural. Go find him. We must ask him and ask him for guidance. At this moment, a weak voice came from the endless divine webs. It was Ning Qingxin. Ning Qingxin, why are you doing this? The Shu Lin's sword immortal let out a long sigh. He did not expect Ning Qingxin to be so determined in her pursuit of Buddhism. He knew that he was not as good as her in this aspect. No wonder the 1,000-year-old old man said that Ning Qingxin's understanding of Buddhism and the eternal great Tao surpassed all of them last time on the top of the Mahayana road of Buddhism. That woman seems to be a god who has comprehended Buddhism. Even Goddess Xianxia noticed that something was wrong with Ning Qingxin. In this world, the strong preyed on the weak. However, there were 3,000 Taos, which were as vast as the sea. Some walked the Tao of killing, some walked the Tao of righteousness, and naturally, some chose the Tao of Buddhism. If that's the case, it's her blessing to die for us. Goddess Xianxia smiled and said, Buddha said, if I don't go to hell, who will? Since you can die for us, perhaps you can find the ultimate source of Buddhism soon. Damn it! Hearing Goddess Xianxia's words, the Shu Lin Sword Immortal could not help but curse. Shu Force Sword Immortal, you've been studying Buddhism all your life. Don't let yourself become immortal at the most critical moment. However, at this moment, Ning Qingxin raised her pale face and looked at the Shu Force Sword Immortal path. It was obvious that she did not hate Goddess Xianxia and the others, because this was her Tao, and it was the pursuit of her entire life. Go, find him, she said weakly. She was to look to her. She then looked at her body. Spider webs with thorns had pierced into her body and were constantly absorbing her essence, energy, and spirit. They were even absorbing her life's worth of comprehension. This was the terror of the evil spider god. It could turn any power into its own. Ning Qingxin, the Shu Lin Sword Immortal, gritted his teeth. He still wanted to save Ning Qingxin. Go, let go of your obsession. Everything is meaningless. Only eternity is the Tao. Ning Qingxin was as old as an old woman. She had lost her past elegance, but she still did not give up. She forgot her original intention. Okay. The Shu Lin Sword Immortal gritted his teeth and left. In fact, he knew that Ning Qingxin would definitely die if he left. Moreover, he did not have the confidence to find that man. After all, the Tao realm was so vast. That man might have already gone somewhere else. However, he only wanted one word. This was Ning Qingxin's biggest obsession before she died. He had to complete it for Ning Qingxin no matter what. If he could not do it in this life, he would do it in the next life. So ugly. Why do you think there are such stupid people in this vast universe? She must have damaged her brain from practicing Buddhism. In my opinion, it's better for this kind of idiot to die early. That's right. In this day and age, who would still practice heart cultivation? Strength is everything. The gods have long pursued strength. Maybe it's because there were too many gods who practiced heart cultivation in the past that caused the calamity of the world will. No god could stop the world will. Watching the Shu Lin Sword Immortal leave, Goddess Xianxia and the others laughed sarcastically. They had never taken Ning Qingxin and the other two seriously because these kinds of gods had always been the weakest among them. That despicable Lei Gong Linling. I think he has already left the God Fall Void and went to the other side. That place is not Emperor Shun's territory. Finding him is like finding a needle in a haystack. A god looked at Goddess Xianxia and said, he chose this path on purpose. However, Emperor Yao has said that we must find Lei Gong Linling and Sheng Gi no matter what. They have chaos divine artifacts. We must get them. Goddess Xianxia gritted her teeth. Her face was full of ferocity. Since Linling is gone, why don't we see how long that woman can last? I think she will turn into a dried corpse in the end. Those evil gods with poison webs are so strange. I have never seen them before. I wonder if they are humans or demons. Let's just watch. They did not leave. Instead, they watched everything in front of them with schadenfreude. Among the endless spider webs, strands of silver hair fell. They were Ning Qingxin's hair. She looked even older now, like a century-old woman. On the other side, the Shu Lin Sword Immortal was flying into the distance. His eyes were red. At this moment, he suddenly doubted his own Tao, because at the most critical moment, the eternity he pursued did not allow him to help at all. He had the cultivation realm, but he did not have the strength to match it. All these years of studying Buddhism, he did not have the time to cultivate his various skills. Was all worth it? Rumble. At this moment, a rumbling sound came from afar. Two powerful gods were attacking a spider evil god. A moment later, the spider evil god was blasted into pieces. It's him. The Shu Lin Sword Immortal looked around and suddenly sucked in a cold breath. He stared at the cold-looking man. He did not expect to meet that man again. One had to know that he did not have any hope. He did not know that if Lin Ling did not want to get the Tao Realm fragment, he would not have any hope of meeting Lin Ling again in this life. Senior, he rushed over, came in front of Lin Ling, and bowed slightly. It's you. Lin Ling frowned. He was also a little surprised. Please enlighten me, the Shu Lin Sword Immortal hurriedly asked. He wanted to help Ning Qingxin resolve her last obsession. I said that I can't guide you. You can leave now. Chapter 4682. Sigh. In fact, I was able to obtain the Mahayana Buddhism not because of how powerful my understanding of Buddhism is, but because an old friend lent me a Buddhist bead. With the protection of the Buddhist bead, I obtained the Mahayana Buddhism. Lin Ling had no choice but to tell the truth. What? This sentence was like a bolt from the blue, and the Shu Lin Sword Immortal's face instantly turned pale. They had given up the Mahayana Buddhism of the godly MT Shumi and had pursued Lin Ling all the way. Ning Qingxin had even sacrificed her life, but in the end, they had obtained this answer. Everything was empty. No, you lied to me. Lie. The Shu Lin Sword Immortal kept shaking his head as if he had lost his life goal. His essence, qi, and spirit were also drained at this moment. These gods who cultivated the state of mind were actually similar to Lin Ling and the rest. The difference was that one pursued the state of mind while the other pursued strength. Their goal was the same for eternity. However, gods like Lin Ling who pursued strength had another goal, which was to stand at the peak of the universe and pursue the ultimate meaning of martial arts. Now, Lin Ling's answer seemed to tell the Shu Lin Sword Immortal that the path they had taken was wrong and there was no end in this life. It was also like killing their future. No wonder the Shu Lin Sword Immortal lost his composure. This person is too stubborn. Lei Gong frowned and said. He could sense the Shu Lin Sword Immortal's emotions. Lin Ling shook his head and said, perhaps they have always been pursuing an obsession, but after the clouds and mist dispersed, they discovered that everything was ultimately fleeting clouds. Thus, they suffered a huge blow. He felt that these gods were too stubborn, completely forgetting that everything was as they wished. What about the woman who was with you? Then, Lin Ling asked again. He remembered that the woman was even more stubborn than this man. Now that she did not appear, could it be that she had given up? She is dead. The Shu Lin Sword Immortal sighed. What happened? Lin Ling frowned. Although he had met the woman by chance, when he thought of the woman who had fearlessly entered the God-perishing void for an answer, he was still a little moved. She died in the hands of those evil gods. The Shu Forest Sword Immortal's face darkened as he recounted what had happened. This guy, as Lin Ling listened, his expression became even colder. He didn't know if he should say that the girl was stupid or that her willpower was astonishing. He was about to die, yet he was still thinking about that answer. He was like a moth flying into a flame. Even though he knew he was going to die, he still didn't forget to pursue his heart. Take me there, Lin Ling shouted angrily. It's too late. However, the Shu Forest Sword Immortal kept shaking his head. He had personally witnessed the terror of the spider evil gods. Most importantly, there were too many of them. How could he make it in time? Even if he could make it in time, he wouldn't be able to save her. Cut the crap and take me there immediately. Lin Ling shouted angrily again, his voice even colder. What's the point of you going there? Not only is the evil spider god there There are also many people who are chasing after you. If they see you, you will be in even more trouble. The Shu Lin's sword immortal still shook his head. In his opinion, Lin Ling had to avoid those experts because he was not as strong as them. So, what was the point of going back? If you say another word, you will die. Lin Ling saw that this person's face was dispirited. He suddenly grabbed the Shu Lin sword immortal's neck and lifted him up. The Shu Lin sword immortal and Lin Ling's eyes met. It was as if he saw a rolling sea of blood, causing his entire body to tremble. Although he was a mid-stage middle deity, when it came to killing people in combat strength, he was far inferior to Lin Ling. One look was enough to make the Shu Lin sword immortal tremble in fear. Go, go, go. The Shu Lin sword immortal's legs went weak as he hurriedly said, "Let's go. If we are a moment later, that woman will really die." Lin Ling did not waste any time. He carried the Shu Lin sword immortal and shot into the distance. In his other hand, he was still holding the huge volcanic rock. From afar, it was as if he was holding a big world. Although Lin Ling was decisive in killing, he was not cold-blooded and heartless. That woman was pursuing her own path. That alone was worthy of Lin Ling's help. Your Excellency, other than the evil god, there are many powerful gods. Many of them are mid-stage middle deities. Being carried by Lin Ling, the Shu Lin sword immortal also said, a mere mid-stage middle deity. What can you do?" Lin Ling snorted coldly, his voice filled with disdain. Although he was now an early-stage lower deity, after endless hard work, his foundation was deep and his strength had greatly increased. Especially with the 3 ultimate universe break behind him, he had the power to destroy the heavens. Boom! Although Lin Ling only said one sentence, when it fell into the Shu Lin sword immortal's ears, it was like a bolt from the blue, causing his mind to buzz. At that moment, he seemed to believe it. However, after calming down, he secretly shook his head. He knew that the cold-looking man was only an early-stage middle deity. In addition, he had lied to them once before. Therefore, he did not believe Lin Ling's words. Previously, Lin Ling was also mysterious, causing them to think that the Dharma was boundless. However, in the end, he had only obtained the Mahayana Dharma through treasures. With Lin Ling's current strength, I'm afraid that there are few mid-stage middle deities who can match him. Among early-stage middle deities, he is definitely the strongest. Therefore, unless Emperor Shun is here, no one can stop him. Lei Gong, who was behind him, smiled. During this period of time, he had hunted the evil spider gods with Lin Ling naturally. He was aware of Lin Ling's strength. The wind howled and the void trembled. 3 figures shot forward with unparalleled speed. At that moment, on the other side of the Godfall void, a large number of meteorites were shooting down. Boom! Boom! However, Goddess Xianxia and the others exploded. They were still standing in the same place, looking at the evil spider gods calmly. They were curious as to why the evil spider gods did not attract the attention of the Godfall void. What a strange, evil deity. However, I can sense that their auras are constantly increasing. I suspect that when they are cultivating, they are completely unaware of what is happening in the outside world. They are only relying on their instincts to cultivate. That woman from before is getting weaker and weaker. It won't be long before she becomes a dried corpse. I'm curious to see how much their strength has increased after absorbing that woman's energy. These gods were staring ahead curiously. In their hearts, they had the idea of transforming into the evil spider gods because this way of cultivation was too fast. It would probably take about 2 hours to absorb a mid-stage middle deity. Goddess Xianxia was also doing the same thing. They're like spiders waiting for their prey. However, what I'm most curious about is why they're not attacked by the Godfall void. Could it be that there is some kind of law involved? An old man said again. With such a large spider web in front of them, not a single meteorite had landed there. This was too strange. Wait, look! Suddenly, someone exclaimed. In the dazzling void, a flaming meteorite was shooting down rapidly. The rolling flames were incomparably dazzling. Chapter 4683. And there's someone. Suddenly, Goddess Xianxia shouted. Everyone saw that there was someone under the meteorite. The most terrifying thing was that the huge meteorite was being carried by someone. Carried by a meteorite? This scene was too shocking. Boom! The huge meteorite smashed into the endless spider webs, forcibly opening a path. 3 figures followed behind the huge meteorite and broke through all obstacles. It seems like these spider webs are afraid of fire. Everyone on Goddess Xianxia's side realized something. At this moment, Lin Ling was leading Lei Gong forward. Not only were they borrowing the power of the meteorite, they were also attacking continuously to break the spider webs. However, these spider webs were also extremely powerful. They were as stiff as knives and kept cutting the volcanic meteorites. The volcanic meteorites kept shrinking and finally turned into 2-meter-thick rocks that were entangled by the spider webs. This also meant that Lin Ling and the other 2 had to rely on themselves. Lin Ling stared ahead and saw that the spider god's web was even bigger here. There were actually more than a dozen spider evil gods, and there were many saint spirits hanging in the spider god's web. There were humans and monsters. Some of them were moaning, and some of them had already turned into dried corpses. Over there, the Shu Lin's sword immortal suddenly pointed. In the direction he pointed, an old woman was entangled in the spider webs. Her body was lifeless, and she was probably not far from death. With just a glance, Lin Ling's eyes narrowed. Was that the quick-witted woman he saw at the top of the Mahayana Buddhist road? At that time, the woman was elegant and had an aura that made people want to get close to her. She was very amiable. However, the woman now had long hair and a face full of wrinkles, making people feel sad just by looking at her. Most importantly, this woman ended up like this because she wanted to pursue the Great Tao. It's so far away. How can we get there? How can we get there? Is Ning Qingxin still alive? Is she still alive? The Shu Lin sword immortal said anxiously as he looked around from time to time. Without the impact of the volcanic meteorites, the spider webs began to spread. Moreover, the spider evil gods hanging in the void seemed to have woken up at this moment. It's him. Isn't that Lei Gong Lin Ling? On the other side, the ancient gods finally got a good look at Lin Ling. They were so shocked that they thought they had misjudged him. In their view, after experiencing such a long time, Lin Ling should have long left the God's Fall void. Lei Gong Lin Ling. Goddess Xianxia gritted her teeth and stared at the spider god web. Suddenly, she understood that Lin Ling wanted to save that woman. This meant that the cold man that the woman had asked them about was actually Lin Ling. Thinking of this, Goddess Xianxia suddenly burst into laughter. Ha ha, it's too late to save her now. She only has 1 breath left. Lin Ling, you can only watch as she turns into a dried corpse. Oomph. Now that Lin Ling can't even protect himself, he's going to become a dried corpse. Some people also laughed. They never expected that Lin Ling, who had been chasing after him for such a long time, would actually die here. All of this was too dramatic. Moreover, after Lin Ling died, wouldn't they be able to keep all the treasures on him? Thinking of this, everyone's eyes burned with excitement. Lei Gong Lin Ling, you're just an early-stage mid-god. However, these spider god webs are something that even mid-stage mid-gods wouldn't dare to face. Haha, you're dead meat. Of course, the happiest person was none other than Goddess Xianxia. Break. However, just as she finished speaking, Lin Ling gently struck out with his sword. Panga strike split the heavens. Split the heavens, create life, the world is mine. At this moment, within the spider web, Ning Qingxin was hit by a powerful aura. Her tired eyes slowly opened, and endless illusions appeared before her eyes. It was the Buddha teaching her the Great Tao. At this moment, she had formed a golden Buddha body and achieved eternity. However, she didn't know that all of this was just an illusion left to her by the spider god webs. At this moment, she really wanted to fall asleep, as if she had entered eternity. However, deep in her heart, there was an obsession that she couldn't let go of for a long time. She didn't know what this obsession was, but if she couldn't figure it out, she would never become a Buddha. Rumble. Suddenly, a palm appeared between heaven and earth, slashing the Buddhas and the endless Buddha bodies, splitting the world in half. An eternal path seemed to appear before her eyes. On that path, a cold-looking man in a blue robe walked over step by step, his cold and emotionless eyes, and his face that would not be alarmed even if the sky fell, were truly shocking. "Son, Senior," Ning Qingxin said weakly. At this moment, she realized that her obsession was that man. She had been searching for this man for an answer, but he had left her. Now he had returned. He had come to tear through heaven and earth and cut through heaven and earth. "Son, Senior, please enlighten me," Ning Qingxin said weakly. This sentence seemed to have drained her of all her strength. Why are you doing this?" A calm voice drifted into her ears. Just as she was about to ask something, she lost consciousness in the end. Her vitality, cultivation, and everything else had been sucked away. She was on the verge of death. "Fine, it's your destiny to meet me," Lin Ling sighed. Endless vitality surged in his body and flowed into his finger. He pointed at it, and it fell into Ning Qingxin's body. Although this vitality couldn't help Ning Qingxin recover, at least it saved her life for the time being. Back then, Lin Ling used his Tao to return to the heavenly plane to cultivate and used endless vitality to break through the bottleneck. Now, countless vitality had already gathered in his body. Now, he was using his vitality to ask Ning Qingxin for help. Although they had only met by chance, Ning Qingxin's stubbornness in pursuing her Tao had completely moved Lin Ling. "Lei Gong Lin Ling." At this moment, Goddess Xianxia's voice came from afar. Lin Ling raised his eyes and looked over. His face was cold. "Ha ha! I didn't expect you to seek your own death for a woman. This is helping us. We can watch you turn into a mummy and then take your treasures." Goddess Xianxia had always been cunning. She had seen through Lin Ling's schemes many times. This time it was the same. She knew that Lin Ling had come for the woman, but he had already put himself in danger. Although Lin Ling had broken the spider god web, in her opinion, that was Lin Ling's strongest attack, and there were still many spider god webs around them. "Lei Gong, watch her." Lin Ling handed Ning Qingxin to Lei Gong and looked at Goddess Xianxia. He wanted to kill that woman when they were in Emperor Yao's territory. This woman was disgusting and domineering, and she had ruined his plans time and time again. To be honest, the reason why Lin Ling could fall out with Emperor Yao was not only because of the giant white tiger god, but also because of Goddess Xianxia. Of course, if she hadn't forced him, Lin Ling wouldn't have killed so many people in Emperor Yao's territory. Chapter 4684. How unlucky. Everyone else has left, but we haven't. Goddess Xianxia sneered. She thought that Lin Ling had returned because he thought that everyone else had left. "You misunderstood me. What I mean is, do you think you can kill me with just a few of you?" However, at this moment, Lin Ling spoke again. Goddess Xianxia and the others were stunned. Lin Ling was just an early-stage mid-god, and they were all mid-stage mid-gods. How could Lin Ling think that they were too few? What a joke. "Lin Ling, you're as arrogant as ever. But I have to admit that your strength is terrifying among early-stage mid-gods. But now that you have to face those spider evil gods, you're dead for sure." Goddess Xianxia sneered coldly. No matter when, she was always able to analyze the situation. She could guess what the other party was thinking. Even if he can defeat the spider evil god, he will have exhausted all his tricks by then. He will not be able to fight against us. An old man beside her sneered. Moreover, he can't even defeat the spider evil god. As he spoke, the spider god's webs had already spread and wrapped around Lin Ling and the others. The Shu Lin's sword immortal looked around, and his face turned pale. He had lost the ability to fight back. The poisonous webs spread in all directions, making it impossible for them to escape. "It's just the spider evil god." But at this time, Lin Ling coldly shouted. He had come for the evil spider god, so how could he be afraid of it? However, his words made Goddess Xianxia and the others laugh even louder. Just that. Lin Ling did not know how many gods the spider evil god had killed, nor did he know what the spider evil god was made of. He just dared to say it. This only showed Lin Ling's ignorance. Earth-splitting slash. At the same time, Lin Ling made his move. As if he had transformed into an ancient beast, his powerful body charged forward. Whoosh! The poisonous webs wrapped around Lin Ling, but they could not stop Lin Ling's charge. The poisonous spikes could not penetrate his body. It was as if Lin Ling was stirring up the waters of a great river, tearing apart the poison net and causing it to tumble. This brat, Lei Gong, had already seen Lin Ling's methods before, but seeing it again, he still felt as if he was invincible in the universe. Bang! Lin Ling rushed in front of one of the evil spider gods and punched out. Earth-splitting technique. Unless it was a god's stairway, it would be invincible against any attack. Blood exploded as the evil spider god was blasted apart by a single fist. A red thread drifted down and was obtained by Lin Ling. Bang! In the next moment, another evil spider god was blasted apart by Lin Ling, blood gushing everywhere. Run! As more and more of the evil spider gods were killed, the remaining evil spider gods began to speak in human language and were planning to flee. It was clear that they had been in a state of cultivation all this time and had not paid any attention to what was happening outside. But now, too many evil spider gods had died, so they had completely come to their senses. You've met your nemesis. How could Lin Ling let them escape? The invincible bronze-colored body pressed out in a domineering manner, as if Pan Gu had descended. This is the same technique that we saw last time. It seems to be an invincible divine ability. Yeah, last time we thought there was a power limit, but later we found that it was impossible. It seems to be a time limit. Such a divine ability. I'm afraid it's the most ancient technique of the ancient gods. Seeing Lin Ling killing in all directions, Goddess Xianxia and the others were stunned and their eyes widened. Previously, they thought that Lin Ling would not be able to deal with the evil spider gods. But in the blink of an eye, Lin Ling showed them what invincibility was. Rumble. In just a dozen breaths, the evil spider gods in the void were torn apart, and all the evil spider gods were killed. In the void, a man carried the corpses of the evil spider gods and slowly walked toward Goddess Xianxia and the others. Rumble. Meteors arrived and blasted on the man's body, but the meteors exploded and the man was unharmed. He did not even move an inch. Terrifying. He was like an ancient giant beast. This also caused Goddess Xianxia and the others to be frozen in place. One word appeared in the depths of their eyes, and that was fear. Lin Ling, you still want to play the same trick? Fake and real, real and fake? I know that this invincible divine ability of yours has a time limit. The current you is just an ordinary early-stage mid-god. Suddenly, Goddess Xianxia's eyes lit up, and she sneered coldly. This time, she seemed to have seen through Lin Ling again. In fact, she had guessed correctly. Lin Ling's Earth Splitter only had 15 breaths of time. Really? Some gods also felt that an early-stage mid-god could be invincible. This was too heaven-defying and did not conform to the laws of the universe. I'm sure. Lin Ling, do you dare to admit it? Goddess Xianxia nodded calmly, but she was still looking at Lin Ling. Goddess Xianxia, I have to say you are really disgusting. At this time, Lin Ling also spoke calmly. Ha ha, I must have seen through you. Lei Gong Lin Ling, you used all your strength to kill the evil spider god. What power do you have left to face us? Goddess Xianxia could not help but laugh. She knew that Lin Ling's words meant that she had guessed correctly. Lei Gong Lin Ling, I really did not expect that you would venture into danger alone for a woman. If I had known, I would have captured this woman and used her to threaten you. Unfortunately, this woman was also tricked by me to go to the spider god's web. Perhaps this is fate, Goddess Xianxia said with a smile. Hearing this, Lin Ling's eyes narrowed and his murderous aura surged. Ning Qingxin had no enmity with Goddess Xianxia and the others. She only wanted to pursue her own Tao. But these people were despicable and shameless enough to attack her. It's too early for you to laugh. Lin Ling's terrifying soul energy began to surge out of his body. Vertical lines appeared out of nowhere and sliced the rift apart, as if they were forming a great universe. However, these vertical lines were not dangerous at all. They were like the light of the universe. Universe 3 Extreme Destruction. Demon subduing destruction. What is this? As soon as the soul energy appeared, the gods who were previously arrogant all frowned. It was too strange. There was no sense of danger, but their souls continued to tremble. Goddess Xianxia, you think you have seen through me? But I, Lin Ling, am not someone who can be seen through by others. Lin Ling's voice floated out, and the terrifying ray suppressed everything like the universe. Oh no, what is this? Run. At this moment, the gods' souls trembled even more violently. They were panicking, although they did not know why they were panicking. Their instincts told them that they could not withstand this attack. Lei Gong Lin Ling. Looking at Goddess Xianxia, her face was ferocious. She did not expect Lin Ling to have such a move. When she wanted to resist, the countless vertical lines had already flown over and passed through them like a net. Chapter 4685. Even the protection of the Tao state is useless. Goddess Xianxia stood quietly in the sky and discovered a terrifying fact. Then her soul dissipated. She had never thought that Lin Ling, who she had been chasing, would have the means to kill her, and it was a complete annihilation, leaving no room for negotiation. Looking at the other gods, their souls were also dissipating. That was the only thought in their minds. What kind of move is this? In the void, a large number of corpses were floating there. The sword immortal of Shu Lin was stunned and could not believe his eyes. A mid-stage middle god had died just like that, and there was more than one of them. Lin Ling plundered Goddess Xianxia and the others. After obtaining a large number of treasures, he left with the sword immortal of Shu Lin and the others. The evil spider god, a god demon born in the god meteorite void, is really terrifying. It can absorb the vitality of the gods and make the protection of the Tao state useless. Lin Ling looked at Ning Qingxin and frowned slightly. Ning Qingxin must have had 3 chances to use the protection of the Tao state, but she could not use it even once. Senior, can Ning Qingxin be saved? The sword immortal of Shu Lin caught up with Lin Ling and asked anxiously. Now, at least I'm still alive. Lin Ling was still staring at Ning Qingxin. Ning Qingxin's hair had fallen out, and her face was full of wrinkles. She looked like an 80-year-old woman who was hanging on by her vitality. But her vitality would eventually dissipate, as if she had died of old age. By then, Lin Ling would not be able to help her. After all, she was a god who had died of old age, not an ordinary mortal. Don't worry, there will be a way, Lin Ling said to the sword immortal of Shu Lin. To be honest, he had done everything he could. After all, he and Ning Qingxin were just strangers. But in the end, Lin Ling still couldn't bear to see her die. After all, this was related to Lin Ling. Along the way, Lin Ling and Lei Gong also joined forces to kill the evil spider gods they encountered. Most of the evil spider gods in the god Meteorfall Void had been killed. As for the evil spider gods in the more remote areas, Lin Ling and the others ignored them. After a long time, Lin Ling returned to the ancient volcano again. He exchanged the spider evil god for the Tao Realm fragment and some treasures that could protect the soul and soul. He then set up a boundary array around Ning Qingxin to keep her alive until her last breath. A god's death can't compare to a mortal's. Lei Gong sighed. He also knew what happened to Ning Qingxin. If a mortal died of old age, a divine pill could easily prolong their life. However, it was very difficult to become a god. At the very least, ordinary divine pills and treasures couldn't do that. Otherwise, those powerful gods wouldn't have reached the end of their lifespan. This was one of the great laws of the universe. Is Ning Qingxin really going to die? The Shu Lin sword immortal's face was extremely gloomy. He looked at Lin Ling expectantly, but in the end he sighed softly. He also knew that Lin Ling had tried his best. Previously, He had also used a lot of treasures to help Ning Qingxin. After all, Lin Ling and Ning Qingxin had only met once. Senior, perhaps this is fate. The Shu Lin sword immortal comforted him. However, Lin Ling remained silent. Suddenly, he looked up at the sky. His eyes were red with a touch of unwillingness and stubbornness. For some reason, he suddenly had an obsession in his heart. That was, he had to save Ning Qingxin. If he couldn't even save Ning Qingxin, how could he, Lin Ling, save his family? How could he fight against the will of the world? The heavens want to take her life. I will take it from the heavens, Lin Ling said lightly. His voice made Lei Gong and the Shu Lin sword immortal tremble. They looked at Lin Ling in disbelief. Lin Ling didn't say anything. With his current ability, he didn't know how to save her for now. Therefore, he planned to go to the square prison to ask. Ning Qingxin won't be in danger for now. During this time, I will definitely find a way to save her, Lin Ling said to Lei Gong and the sword immortal. Then he left. After choosing a quiet corner, Lin Ling entered the square prison. Master Sangue, if a god dies of old age, how can we save him? Looking at the wretched old man in the prison cell, Lin Ling asked directly. Sir, Master Sangue revealed his yellow teeth. After hearing Yi Han's question, he touched his chin and pondered. A god dies of old age. This is an unusual death. In fact, it's like having one foot in the underworld. It's really difficult to save him, because the underworld has already recorded his name. The laws of the universe have already descended on this person. Even Daluo immortals can't save him. Sir, I can't help you in this regard. However, when it comes to saving people, there are 3 people in this prison who might be able to do it. There are also the 3 strongest ancient gods in the prison, Master Sangue said with a smile. The 3 ancient gods. Lin Ling frowned. A jade slip appeared in his hand, and he kept checking it. However, what shocked him was that the jade slip didn't record these 3 people. My lord, these 3 aren't recorded in the quadrangle prison. If you want to pay them a visit, you'll have to find them in person. The gods in the prison more or less know about them, but whether or not they'll help you will depend on your luck. Master Sangue said, Sir, if you come for the Tao State fragment in the future, remember to find me. I can help you with anything about the Tao State. However, if it's about strength and the laws of the universe, it's up to Master Sangue. Master Sangue. Lin Ling nodded. After asking Master Sangue about the location of Master Sangue, he strode over. They weren't recorded in the square prison, but were still imprisoned in the prison. This meant that these 3 people were very strong. Moreover, any prison calamity was useless against them. I didn't expect that there would be 3 ancient gods in this prison. Lin Ling was shocked. One had to know that experts like Master Sangue and Rainbow Cloud Ancestor were extremely powerful. However, Master Sangue was even more powerful. This made Lin Ling curious. Who were they? Following Master Sangue's guidance, Yi Han came to a corridor. What was surprising was that this corridor seemed to have been born out of thin air. The entire corridor was filled with dense fog, and there were only 3 prison cells. Lin Ling walked along the corridor and glanced at the 3 prison cells. He was shocked to find that the scene in the prison cells was a different world. The first prison cell was a world of flames. Rolling flames filled the void, as if there was a universe inside. The second prison cell was an endless green mountain. It was majestic and magnificent. The third prison cell was a vast blue sky. Is this still a prison? Lin Ling was speechless. To these ancient gods, prison cells were nothing more than floating clouds. They had created their own universe and lived a colorful life in it. As expected of ancient gods, Lin Ling stood quietly in the corridor. However, there was no one in the 3 prison cells. It was very mysterious. It seemed that Master Sangue didn't give him any face at all. Chapter 4686. This middle-aged man was dressed in a Taoist robe. He was not tall and gave off a cultured and refined feeling. He smiled and said, I am Guangqingzi, Kongtong Mountain's Taoist ancestor, primeval lord of heaven's disciple. Lin Ling's pupils trembled violently. Lord Prison Master, you're knowledgeable. In this day and age, not many people know of my background, the middle-aged man said with a smile. A very ancient figure. Senior is the Yellow Emperor's teacher. Lin Ling said again. You flatter me. I'm just an old man. Guang Chengzi waved his hand and asked, Lord Prison Master, may I know the reason for your visit? Lin Ling did not hide it and told him his purpose. A middle deity, haha. No wonder Lord Prison Master is helpless. Because Lord Prison Master is only a middle deity. To save someone, one must be at least a peak higher deity. Guang Chengzi nodded and smiled. Lord Prison Master and I are fated. This time, I can help Lord Prison Master. Moreover, my disciple, the Yellow Emperor, is currently looking for the great Yin-Yang primordial mystery dragon. This dragon has the essence of Yin and Yang in its body. It is the best medicine to reverse Yin and Yang and save that middle deity. With a few more divine medicines, this person can be saved. Those divine medicines are all at the celestial level, so there is no need for Lord Prison Master to worry. Lin Ling was stunned. He did not expect Guang Chengzi to be so easy to talk to and directly tell him the solution. After all, this was one of the three supremes. The other gods in the prison were not as easy to talk to as Guang Chengzi. For example, Old Devil Master was not moved by force or persuasion. If he did not seek death at the critical moment, Lin Ling would not have been able to control him. Lin Ling could not help but be cautious. Don't worry, Lord Prison Master. Although I am not under your jurisdiction in the square prison, I cannot offend you. Lord Prison Master will know the secret of this in the future. Guang Chengzi seemed to know what Lin Ling was thinking and smiled faintly. Moreover, Lord Prison Master and I are fated. Fated with you? Lin Ling frowned. Master Guangqing nodded. Back then we met. However, the secrets of heaven cannot be divulged. When Lord Prison is about to know everything, he will know. Lin Ling immediately fell silent and fell into deep thought. Although he didn't fully trust Master Guang Chengzi, he didn't lose out in this matter. How do we find the great Yin-Yang ancient mystery dragon? Lin Ling asked. This dragon is not a true dragon. It is formed from the ancient Xianxia of the universe. It takes 500 years to become a horned dragon, 1,000 years to become a flood dragon, 30,000 years to become an angel, 1,000,000 years to become a gold, and 30 million years to become a Xian. Guang Chengzi said indifferently, I'll teach you the method to search for it, and I'll teach you the method to subdue it. But remember, you can't kill this dragon, or you'll be violating the laws of heaven. You can only take the things on its body. If it sees you using the method, it will definitely know who is subduing it. Under normal circumstances, it won't resist. Furthermore, my disciple, the Yellow Emperor, is also looking for this dragon. You can also help him. As for how to find my disciple, I will teach you another method. A ray of light enveloped Lin Ling suddenly. 2 more treasures appeared on Lin Ling's body, and a large number of techniques appeared in his mind. It was as if countless barriers were colliding in the vast void, and finally, they dissipated in Lin Ling's mind. When Lin Ling opened his eyes, endless barriers appeared in his pupils, intertwining with each other, and a powerful aura spread out. What a powerful method. This level of barriers is simply something I've never seen in my life. Lin Ling sucked in a breath of cold air. Fortunately, his soul power had greatly increased. Otherwise, it would be difficult to digest these barriers. Then, he stared at the 2 treasures in his hands. They were a bell and a sword. These 2 treasures were the top of the Chaos Saint tools. Although they weren't as precious as Chaos Divine tools, they were able to unleash their full potential. For example, Lin Ling's Quafu, Sun Chasing Boots. Although it was one of the top 10 Chaos Divine tools, Lin Ling's strength was too weak, and it couldn't unleash its full potential. Falling Soul Bell, male and female sword. Lin Ling knew the names of these 2 treasures, and he knew how to control them. Unfortunately, these treasures could only be used once. It was as if Guang Chengzi had lent them to Lin Ling. Thank you, Senior Xianxia. Lin Ling immediately bowed to the middle-aged man. Haha, this is fate between you and me. Moreover, I want you to help my disciple. My disciple's divine skill requires the help of the great Yin ancient mystery dragon every 30 million years. Now that the time has come, he is also looking for this item. Go, go. Xianxia slowly disappeared from the prison cell, and the world of endless green mountains was restored. So this is the ancient giant god? Lin Ling muttered to himself, and then left the square prison. None of the three lords were easy to deal with, and they were also the three strongest pillars of the square prison. This made Lin Ling curious about the other two lords. After leaving the square prison, Lin Ling immediately found Lei Gong and the Shu Lin sword deity, and told them that there was a way to save Ning Qingxin. After hearing the news, the Shu Lin sword deity was undoubtedly very happy. Lin Ling decided to let the Shu Lin sword deity and Ning Qingxin stay here, and when he was ready, he would come to save Ning Qingxin. The Shu Lin sword deity also agreed, and did not suspect Lin Ling. After all, if Lin Ling really wanted to abandon Ning Qingxin, it was not a big deal. He did not need to find any excuse to leave. At most 3 years, at least 1 year. I will definitely be back. Here's some treasures. You can keep Ning Qingxin alive for a certain period of time, and she should be able to hold on for 3 years. Lin Ling left some treasures, and then left with Lei Gong. This time, they had killed 50 spider evil gods in the god meteorite void, and obtained 50,000 Tao state fragments, which they shared with Lei Gong. Among the 10,000 Tao state fragments, Lin Ling used them to exchange for treasures to help Ning Qingxin. Therefore, he and Lei Gong each obtained 20,000 Tao state fragments. According to Lin Ling's estimation, these Tao state fragments should be enough for him to enter the middle stage of the intermediate celestial realm. However, the most important thing now was not to break through, but to find Longyang first, and then find the Yellow Emperor. After all, no one knew how long this breakthrough would take. If it took more than 3 years, then Ning Qingxin would definitely die. This way, Lin Ling led Lei Gong forward. Not long after, they arrived at a valley. This valley was where Longyang and the others were. However, there were not many gods outside the valley, and they had never seen them before. It was not as dangerous as the Divine Mountain. After Lin Ling and Lei Gong appeared, the gods around glanced at Lin Ling and the others. Seeing that they were unfamiliar gods, they ignored them. Lin Ling and Lei Gong did not stop. They came to the entrance of the valley, where there was a large area of fog, and gods walked out of the fog from time to time. It was obvious that there were less than 9 layers of fog here, so it should not be difficult to walk through. Lin Ling did not stop. He led Lei Gong into the fog. Oh my god, look at those two. Chapter 4687. Lin Ling and Lei Ying's careless actions undoubtedly shocked the gods outside the valley, causing them to cry out incessantly. What's going on? Why are you making such a fuss? These are ancient gods. Several powerful gods walked over from afar. They were all late-stage mid-gods, and the woman in the lead was early-stage mid-gods. However, the gods behind her seemed to be giving her face. This meant that her background was not to be underestimated. Her expression was arrogant as she stared at the shocked gods, her eyes full of disdain. This woman was the daughter of the heavenly emperor of supreme polarity of the West. Back in the ancient times, she was also an extremely famous god. However, her father was more dazzling, so most of the gods remembered him. The heavenly emperor of supreme polarity of the West was now second only to the 5 emperors in the entire Tao realm. His strength was incomparably tyrannical. It's Goddess Yuing. Some people looked at the insufferably arrogant goddess and whispered to each other, "You people, no wonder you all fell in the great calamity of the world. After cultivating for so many years, you still can't stay calm. What a pity." The woman shook her head. She had come to the valley for only one purpose, and that was to find her tomb. Now that she had reincarnated, she had entered the valley as a new Tao realm cultivator. Therefore, she was here to pick someone up. No, Goddess Yuing, someone entered the miasma just now," an old man explained. "It's just entering the miasma. What's so great about that? You lost your composure just because of that? You should know that there are countless people who enter the miasma every year." "Eh? You said they entered the miasma from outside the valley?" Goddess Yuing did not care at first, but as she spoke, her beautiful eyes suddenly focused. Then, her body trembled imperceptibly. It was normal to enter the miasma from inside the valley. However, it was abnormal to enter the miasma from outside the valley. Everyone knew that entering the miasma from outside the valley meant being lost in the miasma forever, which was equivalent to death. However, despite knowing that it was a taboo, someone still chose to enter. It was simply unheard of. At this moment, within the miasma, a soul lamp appeared on Lin Ling's body as he led Lei Gong forward. An ancient scene quietly appeared in the gray fog. However, this time, it wasn't Lin Ling. Instead, it was Lei Gong. Lei Gong's past life and present life both appeared, causing Lei Gong to be extremely shocked. Lin Ling sighed softly. He wanted to see his origin again, but this time he failed. After a while, a bright light appeared up ahead, and the two of them emerged from the miasma. Almost at the same time, an ancient voice rang out. Just like Lin Ling, Lei Gong now had another chance to be protected by the Dao realm. But this time, Lin Ling didn't get anything. It seems that there is only one reward. Lin Ling thought to himself. Sweeping his gaze across the area, an ancient valley came into view. This valley wasn't as big as the island or the sacred mountain, but there were many dense forests. One could vaguely see gods cultivating here, and most of them had the strength of a lower deity. When Lin Ling and Lei Gong walked out of the miasma, it undoubtedly shocked all the gods. This. The gods were dumbfounded and felt that their eyes were playing tricks on them. However, Lin Ling did not pay any attention to them and continued to look around. "Fellow cultivator, did you walk out of the miasma?" More and more gods came over out of admiration and humbly asked Lin Ling for guidance. They stared at Lin Ling as if they were looking at an ancient saint. Then, the god who spoke sensed Lin Ling's cold gaze and hurriedly bowed. "I don't have any other intentions. I'm just curious. The gods in this valley were ultimately fewer in number and weaker in strength. They weren't as arrogant as the gods on the sacred mountain. Didn't you see it?" Lin Ling also replied indifferently. Then he said, "Is there someone called Longyang here?" "Longyang? I don't seem to remember her. I think I've heard of her, but she seems to have been taken away by the Dao realm and hasn't returned yet." The deities scrambled to be the first to speak. Lei Gong, Lin Ling." Suddenly, a loud roar came from the crowd. Then, a few gods ran over and looked at Lin Ling in disbelief. They were the 10 orthodoxies of a 9 continents void and also White Water Plane Lady's followers. They already felt that Lin Ling looked very familiar. However, they couldn't be sure because they didn't believe that Lin Ling would come here and walk out of the miasma. In their opinion, although Lin Ling was powerful, he had at most walked out of the miasma earlier than them. Therefore, they didn't dare to greet him for fear of offending these two powerhouses. They only reacted when Lin Ling mentioned Longyang. After all, there weren't many people in the Dao realm who knew Longyang. Other than the 3 divine sects of White Mountain, the rest were the people of the 9 continents void. It's you guys." Lin Ling also looked at the 10 orthodoxies. Thump! One of the orthodoxies was instantly stunned. After confirming that it was Lin Ling, he couldn't believe it. Back then, in the Eastern Divine Land, Lin Ling challenged the 10 orthodoxies alone. At that time, Lin Ling was already very powerful and they didn't dare to underestimate him. However, Lin Ling had now grown to such a level. Not only did he walk into the valley, but the surrounding gods were also terrified. They knew that these gods were incomparably arrogant when they first entered the Dao realm. They looked down on newcomers like them and were bullied a lot. Ma orthodoxy, you know these 2 seniors?" That was indeed the case. Seeing the 10 orthodoxies greet Lin Ling, the surrounding gods' faces changed. Because they were newcomers to the 10 orthodoxies, they were bullied a lot. However, it was different now. These 10 orthodoxies had such a strong backer. Of course, he's from our universe. He's from our hometown. Maha-Orthodoxy and the others raised their chins, feeling extremely carefree. Wow, I knew that Maha-Orthodoxy and the others had an extraordinary background. Now that I've met you today, you're still as elegant as ever. That's right, that's right. When you first came, I already felt that you guys were extraordinary. Ha ha ha. White Cloud Orthodoxy, didn't you ask us how to get Tao Realm fragments? You can get 3 Tao Realm fragments by catching Tao Realm birds in the forest. We'll let you have that place. The god smiled and said courteously, "That's not good." Maha-Orthodoxy and the others replied calmly. However, they were even more excited than before. If they weren't afraid of embarrassing Lin Ling and the others, they would have been so excited that they couldn't even stand properly. This was the first time they felt like humans after coming to this valley. In the past, they were like dogs. Maha-Orthodoxy, do you know where Longyang is? Lin Ling didn't have time to entertain their small talk and asked calmly. I know. However, there are more than 10 powerful gods guarding Longyang and waiting for Longyang to return. Lin Ling, I'm afraid we'll have to reconsider this. Maha-Orthodoxy frowned. Chapter 4688. Lin Ling, Longyang is over here. Hearing Lin Ling's cold voice, the 10 orthodoxies hurriedly pointed out the direction, and their hearts skipped a beat. They knew Lin Ling's character. Although he was proud, he was not arrogant. If he dared to say such a thing, he must have absolute confidence. This meant that when they were still cultivating in the valley, Lin Ling had already fought countless battles in the Tao realm, and had seen more of the world than they did. I heard that the people guarding Longyang and the others are from the 3 divine gates of White Mountain. How dare this guy offend them? This guy is strong, but he can't compare to the 3 divine gates of White Mountain. I think he doesn't know how strong the 3 divine gates of White Mountain are. I think so too. When he sees the experts of White Mountain, he won't dare to say anything. The gods around them whispered, because they had never left the Tao realm. They subconsciously believed that the 3 divine gates of White Mountain were the strongest. Lin Ling and Lei Gong followed the 10 orthodoxies. Not long after, in a forest, more than 10 gods sat cross-legged in a circle, as if they were waiting for something. Lin Ling only took one look and immediately knew that the circle was where Longyang left the Tao realm. These gods were waiting for Longyang's return. Kill them. Lin Ling and Lei Gong looked at each other, then walked forward. Rumble. How could the gods withstand their attacks? In the blink of an eye, 3 of them were killed by the light of the Tao realm. Moreover, they died in a daze, not knowing what happened. Do you have a death wish? Why did you attack us? The others' faces changed, and they all shouted angrily. As for the 10 orthodoxies, they were all tongue-tied. They did not expect Lin Ling and the others to be so arrogant, attacking without saying a word. They really attacked. These 2 are really bold. I think they don't know what the 3 divine gates of White Water Mountain represent. Let's wait and see. The gods watching from afar were still whispering. We're from Burning Heart. You're so bold. Aren't you afraid of death? Among the 3 divine gates of White Mountain, there was a god that emitted a powerful aura. Burning Heart? Lin Ling sneered. He already knew that the ancient Buddha Burning Heart was behind the 3 divine gates of White Mountain. Even so, Lin Ling was not afraid. That's right. Burned Heart, Bai Shan, and Deng Xian are the magnates of the Chaos Realm. We have the oldest ancient giant god behind us. In the Chaos Realm, not many people dare to provoke us. Even the ancient giant gods of the Chaos Realm have to bow to us. I respectfully address you as fellow Taoist. Another god stood up and said sternly, I don't know why you dare to attack us, but you'd better go to White Mountain and ask for forgiveness. If it weren't for the fact that Lin Ling and Yi Zichen weren't weak, they wouldn't have wasted any more words and would have directly killed them. Now, they had brought out their backer in order to intimidate Lin Ling and the others. Rumble. However, just as they finished speaking, Lin Ling took another god's life with a punch. Do you know what White Mountain is? This time, the gods were furious. They had been talking for a long time, but these two didn't seem to understand at all. I know what White Mountain represents, but you know what he and I represent. Lin Ling didn't show any mercy and took a few more lives. What do you and he represent? By now, the gods of the three divine gates of White Mountain felt that something was wrong. This time, Lei Gong sneered and said first, I am from Ling Nation, and my name is Lei Gong. As for him, he is from the void of the 9 states, and he is the current Lei Gong of Lei Gong Hall. His name is Lin Ling. Lei Gong. 2 Lei Gongs? What a familiar name, especially Lin Ling. I think I've heard of him before. Wait, could it be that Lei Gong Lin Ling? Impossible. How could he appear here? The gods of the 3 divine gates of White Mountain were stunned, but they immediately reacted. They had been waiting for Longyang, so they naturally knew some things about the void of the 9 states. 1 or 2 of them even knew that it was Lin Ling's appearance that saved Xiaoluan and Longyang. Moreover, Lei Gong Lin Ling arrived at the foot of the mountain, fought the gods, and took Xiaoluan away. It's you. Why are you here? Oh no. Why would this person be afraid of White Mountain? He's here for White Mountain. Run. Inform the Lord immediately. The people of the 3 divine gates of White Mountain panicked and ran away anxiously. This gave all the gods watching from afar a huge fright. They thought that when the 3 divine gates of White Mountain announced their origins, these 2 people would definitely be afraid. However, the reality was completely different from what they imagined. Instead, when these 2 people announced their origins, the 3 divine gates of White Mountain were afraid. What kind of background did these 2 people have to be afraid of White Mountain? Without a doubt, this was beyond their imagination. No matter how hard they racked their brains, they couldn't think of any god in the Chaos Realm who dared to challenge the 3 divine gates of White Mountain. Lei Gong Lin Ling, you're ruthless enough. However, you're still too inexperienced to take our lives. Although the gods of White Mountain were planning to leave, they still didn't back down. Sometimes, you might not be able to escape from my hands. Lin Ling sneered and activated the 3 extreme universe destruction, demon subduing break, forming a large number of vertical lines that flooded over. This powerful soul attack was like a great universe, causing people to feel a sense of fear and trepidation. However, they couldn't sense any danger, which caused the protection of the Tao realm to not appear. Of course, they could actually leave the Tao realm on their own. However, they would be away from the Tao realm for a long time, about the time it takes for an incense stick to burn. However, a battle between gods was ever-changing. One breath was enough to kill them, let alone an incense stick's time. We can't escape. Lord Lin Ling, please spare our lives. Please spare our lives. We can kill ourselves. The forest was in chaos. A few people attacked themselves, causing the Tao realm protection to appear and take them away. When the cosmic rays passed by, the remaining people were all motionless. Their souls had completely collapsed. Witnessing this scene with their own eyes, everyone, including the 10 orthodoxies, was speechless for a long time. Too powerful, beyond their imagination. The other gods were still fine. They didn't know Lin Ling's origins. They only knew that Lin Ling was very strong. However, the 10 orthodoxies couldn't do the same. This was because they knew that Lin Ling was only slightly stronger than them not too long ago. No wonder Lady White Swain knew was willing to follow him. His potential is really terrifying. Yeah, in the void of the 9 continents, because of the limited cultivation resources, it wasn't obvious. However, once he entered the Tao realm, under the same illusion, his advantage was revealed. The man of the 9 continents void is Lin Ling. Chapter 4689. On the other side, when Longyang learned that she was safe, she was stunned for a long time. Because Xiaoluan had returned to the Tao realm not long ago, she had been looking forward to it for a long time. However, when she thought about the distance between the valley and the Divine Mountain, she waited patiently. However, she didn't expect Lin Ling to summon her so quickly. A 5-colored light appeared, and Longyang's figure quietly condensed. As soon as she appeared, She immediately looked around vigilantly. No need to look, they're all dead. Lin Ling smiled at Long Yang. They're all dead. Long Yang looked at Lin Ling solemnly. She felt that after returning from the path of domination, Lin Ling's strength had increased by a lot. If this continued, how could she surpass Lin Ling? The great hatred between her and Lin Ling was born in the Spirit Province. However, from the Spirit Province to the final world, then to the 9 states, and even to the Tao realm, this hatred was still endless. She believed that she had grown very quickly, but compared to Lin Ling, this speed was still more than 10 times slower. Of course, she wasn't jealous because she was familiar with Lin Ling. She knew that Lin Ling must have put in a lot of hard work and sweat to achieve his current strength. Once you return to the Tao realm, you can also become stronger. Lin Ling knew what Long Yang was thinking and said calmly. In fact, he was also looking forward to the battle with Long Yang to settle the knot in their hearts. However, Long Yang had never caught up to him, so Lin Ling could only wait. This is Lei Gong, Lin Ling said. Lei Gong. Long Yang couldn't help but look at Lei Gong seriously. She knew that Lei Gong was also a host of the world will. We're on the same side. Lei Gong smiled. For some reason, his soft words made Long Yang feel good. Perhaps it was because they were both hosts of the world will. Come on, let's get out of here. Lin Ling didn't plan to stay any longer. He looked into the distance and planned to force his way out of the valley like he had done with the Divine Mountain. He knew very well that Emperor Shun, Emperor Yao, and the White Mountain were still looking for him. Those who were taken away by the Tao realm cultivators would definitely inform the 3 divine sections. Therefore, he couldn't stay here for long. Lin Ling looked at the 10 orthodoxies and said, "Now your white water maiden is on the other side. Are you going to look for her? Go!" The 10 orthodoxies nodded. They knew that after Lin Ling left, they would return to their original state. Naturally, they wanted to leave with Lin Ling. Lin Ling nodded and didn't waste any more words. He led the group forward and finally locked onto a cliff in the valley. Then, he led the group up. The cosmic beasts in this valley were lizards, giant snakes, and the like. Any gods who tried to cross the valley and leave would be attacked. Unfortunately, with Lin Ling's current strength, those cosmic beasts couldn't stop him at all. Most importantly, the miasma in this valley was less than 9 layers, so the number of cosmic beasts was much lower. Oh my God, climbing out of the valley is an eye-opener. Don't even think about it. If they could come in from outside the valley, they didn't plan to leave in the usual way. It's normal for them to cross the mountain and leave. That's right, the world that those 2 powerhouses live in isn't something we can understand. In the valley, the god side, the 10 orthodoxies, Long Yang, and the others followed Lin Ling and were equally surprised. After a long time, the group appeared outside the valley safe and sound. Lin Ling said to Long Yang and the others, "In fact, walking out of the miasma will reward you with Tao realm fragments. However, it will take too long. So, after you find White Water Maiden, she will tell you how to get them. 10 orthodoxies, you're weaker. Follow me for now. When the time is right, you can go find White Water Maiden and familiarize yourself with the Tao realm." "Okay, Lord Lin Ling, we'll do as you say." The 10 orthodoxies nodded. Long Yang couldn't put down her pride, but she really wasn't familiar with the Tao realm. Moreover, she was weak now, so she could only swallow the humiliation and follow Lin Ling. "Long Yang, don't worry. You're the host of the world will. It won't be long before your strength increases greatly. There's still hope for you to catch up to this kid." Lei Gong smiled at Long Yang. He knew that Long Yang was once a god in Yojin's tomb. "Thank you, Lord Lei Gong." Long Yang nodded with a smile and respect for Lei Gong. "You're the ones who walked into the miasma from outside the valley?" At this moment, a voice was heard. Countless gods looked at Lin Ling and the others with solemn eyes. This was because these 2 were still alive. "You are." Lin Ling looked over and discovered that there were several late-stage, mid-level experts. The one who spoke was a woman. Although this woman's cultivation level wasn't high, her temperament was extraordinary. This extraordinary temperament came from her bones and wasn't something that was displayed. Heavenly lightning manifestation. Go test his strength. the woman said calmly. As soon as she finished speaking, an early-stage mid-god expert appeared. He controlled violent lightning and turned into a thunder giant. A terrifying punch came crashing down. A seventh-grade mid-god divine fetus. Lin Ling's eyes flashed slightly. Kid, you've got good eyes. I'm one of the strongest early-stage mid-gods. The domineering voice was heard. A total of 8 million divinity energy was mixed in the punch. Lin Ling, let me. Lei Gong said immediately. Lord Lei Gong, there's no need for that. He's coming for me. Lin Ling shook his head. His divine energy fluctuated, and he lightly struck out with his palm. Boom! The fist and palm collided, and the void exploded. A shock wave rushed into the sky, stirring up the clouds. The Thunder Giant's lightning fist was vast and mighty, maintaining the momentum of a punch. Lin Ling, with one hand behind his back, stretched out his palm calmly. Pop! 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 Wave after wave of divinity energy storms shook the surroundings. Some of the weaker gods were sent flying and smashed into the walls of the valley, causing cracks to appear. They also vomited blood. Kid, you're quite capable. I reckon you're one of the strongest early-stage mid-gods. The Thunder Giant shouted angrily. What's the meaning of this? You suddenly attacked. Are you challenging me? Lin Ling said calmly. Haha, it's not a challenge. I'm just trying to see if you have any secrets. World of 10 million lightning. The Thunder Giant shouted angrily. Lightning exploded from his body like a sea urchin. Moreover, it was colorful. This meant that he had cultivated countless types of divine lightning in his life. These divine lightning were also strange and strange. Icy mystic lightning, blazing heavenly lightning, deathless divine lightning, Tai void lightning, and so on. His divine energy instantly exploded into 10 million, and it was still increasing. You won't be able to understand my mysteries. At this time, Lin Ling's third-stage talent fusion appeared. 2,000 strength burst out. His physical strength exceeded 10 million. His divine energy exceeded 10 million. Boom! The moment this energy was released, it seemed to shake the heavens and earth, causing the Thunder Giant's face to change drastically. This strength, he must be invincible among the early-stage mid-gods. The woman narrowed her eyes. She took Lin Ling even more seriously. Chapter 4690. Hold on. The woman had just shouted, but she was still too slow in the end. Now you've tried it. After he killed the lightning giant, Lin Ling looked at the woman and spoke. Even though there were several late-stage mid-god experts on the other side, Lin Ling still had a trump card that he hadn't utilized. So he wasn't afraid. Moreover, he had a feeling that the woman didn't provoke him for no reason. There must be something else going on. At this moment, a 5-colored light appeared, and the old man that Lin Ling had killed returned. He looked at Lin Ling solemnly. He didn't expect that he would waste a chance to be protected by a Tao Realm expert. Aspect of Thunder. How much stronger is he compared to you? The woman looked at the old man and asked. Aspect of Thunder? One of the 9 divisions, he was extremely famous in the Age of Gods. During the Battle of the North Celestial Court, he once guarded 10 million gods and demons, and none of them could break into the Celestial Court. I didn't expect that after reincarnating, he would appear here. It said that he has a high god divine embryo. Everyone recognized the aspect of Thunder, and their faces were solemn. Miss, this person's strength is unfathomable. The old man looked deeply at Lin Ling. He couldn't see through Lin Ling's strength at all. Lin Ling's divine embryo didn't seem to be at the same level as him, but its divine energy was very strong. In addition, there was another powerful force, which seemed to be the power of the flesh. This gave him the illusion that this person didn't just have a divine embryo talent. Unfathomable. The woman frowned at Lin Ling. She knew very well that after the reincarnation of the aspect of Thunder, his strength had always been one of the best in the same realm. For him to say that this person was unfathomable, he must be very strong. In addition, this person could enter the miasma and return safely. He must have a powerful background. Fellow cultivator, may I ask who you were in your previous life? The woman smiled and asked politely. She was the daughter of the Heavenly Emperor of Supreme Polarity, Goddess Yuing. She was indeed the daughter of a Heavenly Emperor. After testing him, she immediately restrained her emotions and treated him politely. I don't know either, Lin Ling said indifferently. He. Goddess Yuing immediately smiled. However, she was smooth and slick, so she did not ask too much. She reckoned that this young man had a powerful background in his previous life, but for some reason, he did not want to talk about it. In fact, she didn't know. Lin Ling really didn't know. Fellow Taoist, my father is the Heavenly Emperor of Supreme Polarity of the Western Continent. For some reason, I need to find some people with strange abilities to go with us to a certain place. There are great opportunities there. If you can help us, fellow Taoist, you'll benefit greatly. Goddess Yuing continued, you don't have to worry. Because of my father, I won't lie to you. Moreover, there are so many people watching here. I won't cause my father to be scolded for not keeping his word. The Western Heavenly Emperor of Supreme Polarity? Lin Ling frowned slightly. Lin Ling, Yang Qi said. His background is not to be underestimated. He's a character from the primeval age who once commanded millions upon millions of gods and dominated a certain area in the south of the Yorwild's world. In the primeval age, he was even more domineering and unruly. No one dared to oppose him in the south of the god world. Lei Gong said solemnly. How does he compare to the 5 emperors? Lin Ling asked. The 5 emperors are the leaders of the 5 most ancient human tribes. The Heavenly Emperor of Supreme Polarity of the Western Continent is still a little short. Lei Gong said. After a short conversation, Lin Ling had become familiar with the Heavenly Emperor of Supreme Polarity of the Western Continent. The two of them didn't hide anything from each other, so Goddess Yuing also heard them. Although her expression was still calm, there was a hint of pride in her eyes. There weren't many gods in the entire era who didn't know her father's name. I wonder where that place is. Lin Ling looked at Goddess Yuing and asked, I can't say much for now. If fellow Taoist wants to go, I'll give you 3 incense sticks worth of time to think about it. Goddess Yuing said with a smile. Lin Ling immediately looked at Lei Gong and asked for his opinion. Lei Gong shook his head, meaning that everything was up to Lin Ling. Although Lei Gong was once Lin Ling's master, Lei Gong also knew that Lin Ling was a decisive person. No matter what, he would always choose the best path. Lei Gong's hall was an example. Under Lin Ling's leadership, it was much stronger than before. Lin Ling fell into deep thought. Now that he was in this unfamiliar place, it was indeed difficult for him to do anything. Moreover, the experts from the Emperor Shun side were probably rushing over. It wasn't good to stay here for long. Moreover, he had to find the Yellow Emperor and the Great Yin-Yang Primordial Mystery Dragon to help Ning Qingxin. Therefore, following these people might not be a bad choice. At least he could find out about the Yellow Emperor's whereabouts. All right, Lin Ling nodded and said, but let me say this first. If there is any danger, I will leave immediately and ignore you all. Okay, after this is done, you will also get 5,000 Tao state fragments. If we find any treasures along the way, you will also get a share. Goddess Yuing nodded. She knew that Lin Ling would be very cautious when meeting for the first time. However, she believed that after interacting with him, Lin Ling would also believe her. Human. Of course, the reason why she wanted Lin Ling's help was that she heard that to reach that place, one would have to face a mysterious miasma on the way. Previously, she saw that Lin Ling could walk through the miasma, so she wanted to ask Lin Ling to come along. Fellow cultivator, how should I address you? Lin Ling. Fellow cultivator Lin Ling, we will wait here for a day. When my servant comes out of the valley, we will set off immediately. Of course, if she still hasn't come out of the miasma after a day, we will also set off immediately. That will be the best. After chatting for a while, everyone took a break outside the valley. When Longyang saw that Lin Ling was talking and laughing with the ancient grand gods, her self-esteem was also affected. She could only seize the opportunity to improve her strength. She did not want to be surpassed by Lin Ling too much. Lin Ling could talk and laugh with the ancient grand gods, but what about her? They looked at her as if she was an ant. If she was not by Lin Ling's side, they would not even bother to look at her. This was the difference between them. While Lin Ling was waiting, he was also talking to Yu Yu. He told them that Long Yang and the 10 orthodoxies had been found, and that they would return in a few days. At the same time, he also asked Yu Yu and the others to keep an eye on Emperor Shun and Emperor Yao. It would be best if they did not expose their whereabouts easily. After that, Lin Ling began to cultivate. He looked at the 20,000 pieces of Tao state fragments and knew that as long as he saved Ning Qingxin, he would be able to break through to the next realm. During this process, Goddess Yuing also talked to Lin Ling politely as if she wanted to find out something from Lin Ling. Chapter 4691. However, if Goddess Yuing knew that the man in front of her was a god who dared to fight against the 5 emperors and was the leader of the 2 great human tribes, Emperor Shun and Emperor Yao, she would know that her father was nothing special. The heavenly emperor of supreme polarity of the West paled in comparison to the 5 emperors. A day passed quietly. Just as Goddess Yuing and the others were about to leave, a young girl finally rushed out of the miasma and came to Goddess Yuing excitedly. "Young mistress, I'm out." The young girl was very happy, like a little rabbit jumping for joy. "Hee hee, Xiaoying, I've been waiting for you for a long time." Goddess Yu Ying's eyes shone with a doting light. Back then, when the great calamity befell the world, her father could not even protect himself. This caused Goddess Yuing to have no one to help her. However, her maidservant Xiao Ying fought with her life and helped her escape. Although Goddess Yuing still couldn't escape death in the end, Xiao Ying's action of risking her life to protect her master still moved her. Therefore, after she reincarnated, Goddess Yuing also treated Xiao Ying as her own younger sister to make up for the kindness she owed in her previous life. "Hee, I've kept you waiting, young mistress. However, I've tried my best. I came out of the miasma faster than many gods in the valley." Xiao Ying giggled. "It's nothing. The miasma in this valley only has 7 layers. Moreover, your background is not small. Naturally, you came out faster than them." Goddess Yuing smiled and shook her head. She led the group away. Young mistress, who are they?" Xiaoying also saw Lin Ling and the others. She had even seen the 10 orthodoxies and Long Yang in the valley. She knew that these people were ordinary existences. What made her curious was that these ordinary gods were qualified to follow her young mistress. "A few capable people, it just so happens that we're going there, so we asked for their help." Goddess Yuing said, "Young miss, you couldn't have been deceived, right? I know all of those people. They were beaten up so miserably in the valley." Xiaoying frowned. Although she was a servant back then, she had followed Goddess Yuing, so her vision was naturally not low. "Xiaoying, I know you're worried about me, but don't worry, they can't trick us. If they can't help us, we'll just let them go." Goddess Yuing smiled and did not mind. Hearing this, Xiaoying pursed her lips and did not say anything more. However, her eyes were full of disdain towards Long Yang and the others. Even though she sensed that Lin Ling and the Thunder God were more powerful, they were only mid-level deities, and it wasn't like she hadn't seen them before. Coupled with the trash from the 10 orthodoxies, he probably wouldn't be that strong either. "Humph, lowly little god. You probably used some method to deceive Miss. Unfortunately, the world that Miss once lived in is not something that you can understand. It won't be long before you will be beaten back to your original form and run away with your tails between your legs." Little Ling thought to herself and ignored Lin Ling and the others. The members of the 10 orthodoxies recognized Xiao Ying as well, and when they noticed her gaze, they were all pissed. Of course, even though they were unhappy, they weren't a match for the young girl in the valley, let alone now. Long Yang frowned. She had some impression of Xiao Ying. Although there was no hatred between them, she remembered that the girl had always been arrogant and looked down on everyone in the valley. At that time, she thought that the girl had not seen much of the world. She was bound to meet her match, but now it seemed that the girl did have some background. Lin Ling and Lei Gong also saw the girl. However, they ignored her. A girl who was not even intermediate celestial was not worthy of their attention. Along the way, other than Goddess Yu Ying and High Minister Heavenly Thunder, the others looked down on Lin Ling and the others. After all, they were late-stage intermediate celestials. They regarded Lin Ling and the others as ants. After a long time, in a mountain range, there was a gentle breeze and leaves were falling. The scenery was beautiful. There was a grass pavilion there. Many people had already gathered in the pavilion. Looking at their background, they were mysterious. Goddess Yu Ying, you are finally here. I thought it was your father who came for the 1,000-year agreement. A fat Buddha suddenly laughed. This person's strength was extraordinary. He was a late-stage, intermediate celestial. Especially with his talent, he was probably an 8th grade or even 9th grade intermediate celestial fetus. Laughing Buddha, you are early. Goddess Yu Ying smiled at the crowd. It was obvious that she already knew these people. Not far from the Buddha, there were more than 10 people. There were gods wearing Taoist robes and carrying long swords. There were also gods holding chains. They were extremely burly. When they saw Goddess Yu Ying, they all smiled. But when they looked at the others, their faces turned cold again. It was as if only Goddess Yu Ying was worthy of their attention. Even the late-stage intermediate celestials around Goddess Yu Ying, they did not even look at them. All this showed that their background was not small. Haha, is everyone here? At this time, divine light filled the sky in the distance. More than 10 figures arrived. The person in the lead was dressed in brocade clothes. His strength was even more unfathomable. After he appeared, everyone in the pavilion narrowed their eyes. Emperor Donghua, a giant god from the ancient era, had lived until the era of the gods. In the divine world, he guarded the east of the divine world. No one dared to disobey him. His reputation was extremely resounding. This person was on par with Goddess Yu Ying's father, the heavenly emperor of supreme polarity of the West. They were both emperors that could not be underestimated. Unfortunately, when the great calamity of the world came, the god emperor still could not escape death. However, after returning from reincarnation, this person carried the memories of the god emperor and rose wildly. Now, he was also one of the existences that could not be underestimated in the Tao realm. Emperor Donghua, have you returned from the Tao pagoda? The laughing Buddha from before cupped his hands and smiled at the person who came. There were very few people in the entire era who could make him bow so politely. Yes, the 1,000-year agreement has arrived. How can I miss such an opportunity? The man smiled faintly. He looked calm, but his every move carried the domineering aura of a superior. He looked at Goddess Yu Ying and said, "Now, except for Elder Huangshan, everyone is here. However, Goddess Yu Ying, is your father really not coming?" Father is in seclusion. It's also the most critical moment, so it's inconvenient for him to come. He entrusted this matter to me. Goddess Yu Ying said with a smile. So that's how it is. I knew it. How could he give up such an opportunity? So it's the most critical moment. Emperor Donghua nodded. Following that, everyone continued to talk about the matter of the 1,000-year promise. A 1,000-year agreement. This means that this kind of gathering has probably happened several times. Chapter 4692. However, these people are really powerful. With so many experts gathered here, I'm curious about what they're looking for. Lei Gong said curiously. This trip had broadened his horizons. He knew that the Tao realm was magnificent and there were countless experts. Everyone, sorry to keep you waiting. At this moment, another voice sounded. A resplendent golden dragon appeared in the sky. This dragon was huge, and its whiskers were silver. It was very majestic. As it flew past, it sprinkled countless drops of sweet dew, nourishing the world. 3 figures stood quietly on the golden dragon, one on the left and one on the right. Both of them were wearing cotton clothes, but their strength was even more unfathomable. This was because one of them actually had the strength of a superior deity. They were about 30 years old. Their faces were cold, and they were imposing without being angry. Looking at the old man in the middle, He had a kind expression and looked like a mortal. He was smiling at everyone. Elder Yellow Mountain. This was the last group of people they had gathered this time. Even the Heavenly Emperor of Supreme Polarity of the West couldn't see through this person's background. He only knew that he was called Elder Yellow Mountain. Elder Yellow Mountain, you're really late. Emperor Donghua cupped his hands slightly at the old man. His previous arrogance instantly disappeared, and there was fear in the depths of his eyes. He didn't know Elder Yellow Mountain's background, but he knew that this person was really strong. He had the power to overturn the clouds and rain and destroy the universe. 3,000 years ago, they had gathered for the first time. At that time, Elder Yellow Mountain wanted to join the treasure hunting team. However, Emperor Donghua was not convinced and wanted to teach him a lesson. In the end, he couldn't block a single finger. This matter left a heavy shadow in his heart. In this era, there were very few people who could make him unable to block a single finger. Emperor Donghua, you're always the first to come every year. The old man chuckled and walked down from the golden dragon. With a wave of his right hand, the majestic golden dragon turned into a small snake and disappeared into the old man's body. This dragon is probably comparable to the dragon god at the Kaiyuan River. Lei Gong was secretly shocked. Not only that, that's the real dragon ancestor. Lin Ling shook his head. He had a feeling that once the golden dragon appeared, not many people present would be able to withstand it. However, this person gives me a very familiar feeling. Soon after, Lin Ling muttered in his heart as he recalled the task Master Wangqing had entrusted to him. He quietly laid down a barrier and used his divine arts to investigate. This spell was extremely ancient and was passed down by Master Wangqing. Very few people in this era knew about it. It's him. After investigating, Lin Ling's mind was in turmoil. Previously, he was only slightly curious. Who would have thought that he would actually obtain such a harvest? He's here too, and no one knows him. How could this be? Lin Ling frowned, but soon he was overtaken by surprise. This was because the elder's appearance was clearly targeting the great Yin-Yang primordial mystery dragon. This Xian dragon, formed from the ancient universe Xianxia, was the treasure this old man needed for his cultivation. I didn't expect my luck to be so good this time. A smile appeared on Lin Ling's face. While Lin Ling was lost in thought, everyone was still chatting with each other, as if they were old friends who hadn't seen each other for many years. Of course, after Elder Yellow Mountain arrived, many gods tried to curry favor with him, hoping to obtain a powerful backer. That old man Huangshan was also kind and treated everyone equally. He gave off a very good feeling. Elder Yellow Mountain, my name is Sage Sa. I was transformed from a purple mosquito in ancient times. I cultivated for tens of millions of years and became the disciple of the North Pole Emperor during the Age of Gods. I learned the essence of martial arts and have reincarnated. Senior, I'm Yin Tongzi, a general of the giant spiritual god's tomb during the Age of Gods. I died in the great calamity of the world's will and have reincarnated. My master is Haze Mountain in the north of the Chaos Realm. Elder Yellow Mountain. Some gods who were here for the first time introduced themselves. Not only did they tell Elder Yellow Mountain their origins, but they were also telling the others. And these gods could only be invited here. They also had some ability and could be of help to the people. Elder Yellow Mountain nodded with a smile. Suddenly, he looked at Lin Ling and the others and asked kindly, who are these? That was because all the unfamiliar faces present had introduced themselves. Only Lin Ling and the others were watching quietly, as if it had nothing to do with them. As soon as he spoke, everyone looked at Lin Ling and the others curiously. However, when they realized that Long Yang and the others were only lesser gods, they all looked disdainful. The gods present were all old monsters who had lived for tens of millions of years. Not to mention lesser gods, they had even seen superior gods. Naturally, they didn't take Lin Ling and the others seriously. These are the people I brought here, Goddess Yuing said with a smile. So it's Goddess Yuing. Although their cultivation is a little weak, they must have some ability to be invited by Goddess Yuing, said the smiling Buddha. He had already seen Lin Ling and the others and was also curious about what abilities these people had. Hurry up and greet these seniors and introduce yourself. At the side, Xiaoying suddenly said coldly to Lin Ling and the others. Her tone was very unpleasant, as she felt that Lin Ling and the others were too insensible. In fact, the 10 orthodoxies were already flattered. The reason why they didn't speak was because they were waiting for Lin Ling to speak. Lei Gong Lin Ling. At this time, Lin Ling looked at everyone and said, of course, most of them were looking at Elder Yellow Mountain. Everyone nodded and waited for Lin Ling to say his origin. However, Lin Ling only said a name and then looked indifferent. That's it? Which god's reincarnation are you? Don't you plan to tell us? The gods were in a bad mood, and Xiaoying immediately spoke. That's it, Lin Ling replied indifferently. In fact, he also didn't know which god's reincarnation he was. How arrogant, he's just an early-stage mid-god. Who gave him the guts? The other newcomers would at least tell us where they came from, but he only has a name. Perhaps he's just here to make up the numbers. He won't be of any help later. If Goddess Yuing didn't bring him here, such a person would have been chased away long ago. Many ancient gods were whispering to each other. Goddess Yuing was incomparably embarrassed and didn't say anything in the end. In her impression, Lin Ling had always been so cold and arrogant. However, this Lin Ling didn't know who was present, especially Elder Yellow Mountain, who could erase his existence with just a breath. Sigh, the ignorant are not guilty. Goddess Yuing sighed secretly. How dare you? At this time, Xiaoying couldn't help but shout. I really don't know what kind of ability you have. It's your fortune that Miss brought you here. Not only did you take advantage of us by following us, but you're also so arrogant. Her words were merciless, which made Lin Ling frown. He didn't have a past life's origin because he didn't know. Chapter 4693. Xiaoying didn't think that Lin Ling would dare to talk back. Yes, she was a servant girl, but she was still a servant of the Heavenly Emperor of Supreme Polarity. In terms of background, she was much better than this guy of unknown origin. All right. It's good enough that we know your name. Elder Yellow Mountain suddenly laughed. He was the most senior and the strongest here, but he was the easiest to talk to. See? He doesn't even care. You're just a maid. What nonsense are you spouting? Lin Ling sneered at Xiaoying. I'm so angry. Xiaoying stomped her feet. Lei Gong and the others smiled helplessly. They copied Lin Ling and only said their names, not their origins. In fact, it didn't matter whether they said it or not. Compared to the people here, their origins were indeed very ordinary. What a bunch of ignorant juniors. But they probably don't have much ability. They'll be eliminated soon. Although the big shots weren't happy, they didn't take it to heart. Lin Ling and the others weren't enough to make them angry. Since everyone is here, why don't we set off now? The smiling Buddha said, looking at Elder Yellow Mountain. Elder Yellow Mountain nodded and waved his right hand. The golden dragon from before appeared. It circled the sky and landed on the ground, waiting for everyone to board it. Thank you, Elder Yellow Mountain. The gods all bowed to Elder Yellow Mountain and then jumped on the golden dragon. Some of them knew that this golden dragon was extremely powerful and had the speed of 10 million worlds in a second. I broadened your horizons. You're really lucky. But later, if you're useless, then get lost. Xiaoying also jumped on the golden dragon and said to Long Yang and the others at the same time, what an arrogant maid. Hearing this, Lei Gong couldn't help but be angry. Although there were countless experts here, the maid was only a lesser deity. If someone said she was useless, then it was she who was useless. She's just a little maid. What's there to be angry about? Lin Ling smiled indifferently. He was obviously more concerned about the great Yin-Yang primordial mystery dragon. Moreover, he knew that he was the only one who could obtain the treasures on the great Yin-Yang primordial mystery dragon. Then, he led Lei Gong and the others onto the golden dragon. The golden dragon scattered down endless sweet dew, disappearing into the heavens, flying into the distance with the speed of 10 million great worlds. Everyone stood on the golden dragon and looked at the endless barren mountains. Then they looked up at the nebulous primordial chi above their heads. Their hearts were filled with pride. A mount with such speed was something they had never seen in their lives. Being able to ride, it was also something that made them proud, especially when they saw the scenery around them flashing by like white horses. They felt as if they were galloping through the river of time. Little friend Lin Ling. While Lin Ling was looking around, old man Huang Shan suddenly walked over and said with a smile, "You look like an old friend of mine. We hit it off at first sight." The surrounding people were admiring the beautiful scenery. When they saw Elder Yellow Mountain take the initiative to greet them, they were all shocked. "Hee hee, I'm sorry, but this is indeed my first time meeting you." However, Lin Ling smiled and shook his head. "Bastard, this idiot missed a great opportunity. Sigh, how can there be such an unappreciative person in the world? Elder Yellow Mountain's strength is unfathomable. Even his guards are superior gods." He took the initiative to greet him, but this kid actually didn't seize this opportunity. The gods were cursing in their hearts, and they were very envious. That was because although Elder Yellow Mountain was polite to them, it was only polite. They all knew that Elder Yellow Mountain would not pay attention to them after this operation. However, that junior called Lei Gong Lin Ling had a chance. As long as he curried favor with Elder Yellow Mountain, he might even be accepted as a disciple. Unfortunately, this guy was blind and missed it. Is that so? Maybe it's just my imagination. Elder Yellow Mountain was stunned and incomparably embarrassed. He could only walk back to the dragon's head. This made Goddess Yuing shake her head helplessly. This Lei Gong Lin Ling was too arrogant. Lin Ling, this. Even Lei Gong could not believe it. He felt as if he had missed a powerful friend. He knew very well that the people present were not weak, but they had to be respectful to Elder Yellow Mountain. This was even more proof of Elder Yellow Mountain's identity. However, Lin Ling was disdainful. That was too awesome. "It's okay. He'll look for me again." Lin Ling smiled indifferently because he knew Elder Yellow Mountain's master and knew how to obtain the treasures on the great Inyang primordial mystic dragon. Guang Chengzi sought Lin Ling's help, which meant that this old man was bound to fail. Only Lin Ling's help could succeed. The great Inyang primordial mystic Qi should have matured by now. "Everyone, how's the deduction?" At this time, Goddess Yuing looked at everyone and said, 3,000 years ago, I took a wisp of Inyang primordial mystic Qi and hid it in the Buddha beads. I check it every day. Now, this wisp of Inyang primordial mystic Qi has grown stronger by the day. My Dong Yu Chan also pointed out that it's in the vicinity. The gods spoke one after another. They had all come to search for treasures in the past, so they all had an impression of it. However, they could only find the general direction. As for the specific location, they could not be sure. After all, after 1,000 years, all kinds of mysteries would appear. Not to mention, the Inyang primordial mystic Qi had a spirit and would wander from time to time. It was difficult to determine the direction. The pagoda pearl golden pen that my father left me also wrote that it's in this area. However, my cultivation is too weak to calculate the specific location. Goddess Yuing said. This was also the reason why everyone had gathered here. It was because they knew that it was utterly impossible for them to obtain any treasures by themselves. Then, they all looked at Elder Yellow Mountain. Now that the general location had been determined, it was up to Elder Yellow Mountain to determine the specific location of the Inyang primordial mystic Qi. Since everyone has the same opinion, it means that we didn't go the wrong way. Next, let me try. Elder Yellow Mountain smiled, walked to the dragon's head, and pointed. In the sky, bronze light bloomed. Then, a square ancient cauldron appeared. The ancient cauldron burned with sandalwood. Then, he pointed his finger again. Another square ancient cauldron appeared. After 4 ancient cauldrons appeared, Elder Yellow Mountain stomped the dragon's head, and the golden dragon flew to the ground with everyone. It's my turn. At this time, another god spoke. He spread his hands, and endless petals floated out and disappeared in the ground. Then, this person smiled excitedly and pointed into the distance. It's in that abyss. Everyone was delighted. They had finally found it. Xiang was also very happy. Suddenly, She looked at Lin Ling and the others mockingly and said to herself, I knew it. You guys are just here to make up the numbers. How shameless. At this moment, everyone jumped down from the golden dragon and headed straight for the abyss in front of them. However, this abyss was like the mouth of a demonic beast. Moreover, it was very long and filled with rolling fog. Chapter 4694. The Tao Realm Miasma was the most mysterious. Even the 5 emperors did not understand it. It was said that if one entered it, they might be lost forever. Why is there a Tao Realm Miasma all of a sudden? Everyone, confirm if the treasure land is below the abyss. I've already checked. There's no mistake. Then how do we go in? Are we going to fail this time? Above the abyss, everyone frowned. No one dared to test it because they were too familiar with the Tao Realm Miasma. However, although they did not dare to enter, they used all kinds of methods to investigate. For example, the Laughing Buddha recognized the ancient Yin Buddha bead. The moment the bead appeared, the entire ground was illuminated and everything near the bead was burned. Then, he threw it into the abyss. However, the dazzling ancient Yin Buddha bead disappeared without a trace after falling into miasma. The most terrifying thing was that the Laughing Buddha could not sense the bead at all. He frowned and said, If we go in rashly, I'm afraid we'll get lost. Although the miasma is powerful, we just need to destroy this place. Beside Goddess Yuing, Xiaoying suddenly suggested, causing many people's eyes to light up. That's right. Although the miasma was powerful, this cliff was probably not that powerful. This young friend's suggestion is not bad. Emperor Donghua pondered for a moment and smiled. He looked at Xiaoying and nodded in admiration. This gaze undoubtedly made Xiaoying feel very proud. Suddenly, she looked at Long Yang and the others with disdain in her eyes, as if saying, Do you see that? You're all useless trash. It's useless. If this abyss is broken, the miasma will definitely disperse. At that time, it will be even more difficult to find that place. However, at this moment, Elder Huang Shan's voice sounded, causing Xiaoying's pride to be doused with cold water. Elder Huang Shan, do you have any ideas? Someone looked at Elder Huang Shan and asked. However, Elder Huang Shan frowned and shook his head. Seeing this, everyone sighed softly, but they were unwilling to give up. They were all thinking. Xiaoying's strength was about the same as Long Yang's, so she naturally had no ideas. She suddenly looked at Lin Ling and the others, and her expression immediately became unhappy. These people couldn't help at all and would only watch from the sidelines. He really didn't understand where they got the face to refuse to leave. The more she looked at them, the more unhappy she became. She couldn't help but say sarcastically, A bunch of ignorant little gods. Are you all so shameless? It's one thing to be weak, and it's one thing to not be able to help, but everyone is anxious. Look at you guys, you look so calm and relaxed. Those who don't know you might think that you're the reincarnation of an ancient god. Although these words weren't spoken aloud, quite a number of gods heard them. Displeasure appeared in their eyes as they looked at Lin Ling and the others. It was undeniable that Xiaoying was right. All of you scram. Xiaoying spoke again, wanting to drive Lin Ling and the others away. All right, I forgot about him. However, at this moment, Goddess Yuing suddenly thought of something and immediately looked at Lin Ling, fellow Taoist. Aren't you able to enter the miasma of the Tao realm? Do you have any ideas? As soon as these words came out, everyone looked at Lin Ling, and their expressions changed greatly. Elder Huang Shan's pupils trembled violently. He could enter the miasma of the Tao realm. He had been in the Tao realm for tens of millions of years, and this was the first time he had heard of someone who could enter the miasma of the Tao realm. When he looked at Xiaoying again, she trembled as if she had been struck by lightning. She had just said that Lin Ling and the others were trash, but in the blink of an eye, someone said that they could enter the miasma of the Tao realm. Most importantly, the person who said this was her young mistress. Young mistress, are you mistaken? Xiaoying kept shaking her head. Even these big shots were helpless against the miasma. How could these little gods have the ability to do so? This isn't the miasma of the Tao realm. At this moment, Linling also said calmly. As expected, he's still helpless. It seems like you're overthinking it, young mistress. Hearing the first sentence, Xiaoying suddenly felt very happy. The laughing Buddha, Emperor Donghua, and the others frowned and then shook their heads. It seemed like they were overthinking it. However, this place is exactly the same as the miasma of the Tao realm, so I think it shouldn't be difficult. However, Linling's next sentence shocked all the gods into silence. Indeed, this wasn't the miasma of the Tao realm, but this miasma was the same as the miasma of the Tao realm, and that was enough. Why you really have a way? Hurry up and bring us in. If we enter, we'll definitely reward you. Remember, my name is Emperor Donghua. If anyone bullies you in the Tao realm, you can use my name. Young friend, you're an early-stage mid-god. I have a treasure here that can guarantee you defeat 70% of your opponents. As long as you bring us in, this treasure will be yours. The gods spoke one after another and took out rewards to tempt Linling. In their opinion, their rewards should be enough to move Linling. Damn it, that Lone Yang is from the 10 orthodoxies. They're all very ordinary gods. The gods following them are also limited in strength. How can he have a way? This is so infuriating. Only Xiaoying was frowning. She felt like she had been slapped in the face, and it was a fierce slap. Linling, on the other hand, smiled. He did not care about the rewards given by the gods at all. For example, Emperor Donghua's promise that if anyone bullied him in the Tao realm, he would use his name? What a joke! Linling had offended by Shan, Emperor Shun, and Emperor Yao. What was the use of these people's face? As for the laughing Buddha's treasure, that was even more of a joke. Now that Linling was invincible among early-stage mid-gods, Linling didn't care about the laughing Buddha's treasure. Young friend, please. Only Elder Huang Shan and Goddess Yuing were sincerely asking for help. They bowed slightly to Linling. Fine, you met me. It's your fortune to meet me. Linling nodded. He also wanted to enter the depths of the abyss, so they could work together. Fortune. Hearing this, the laughing Buddha and Emperor Donghua were tongue-tied. They almost laughed out loud. However, they endured it for now. They wanted to see if Linling had the ability. Follow me. Linling didn't waste any time and jumped into the abyss. Young friend, fellow cultivator, Elder Huang Shan and Goddess Yu Ying's expressions changed. He was too confident to jump in just like that. As for Xiao Ying and the others, they were not worried about Linling. Instead, they were curious whether Linling could succeed. Linling quickly disappeared into the hazy fog, as if he had disappeared without a trace. He's probably lost forever. After waiting for a moment, Emperor Donghua shook his head and sneered. I thought he had some ability, but it turns out he's just an ignorant junior. The laughing Buddha sighed softly. However, at this moment, a bright light suddenly appeared in the rolling fog. Although it wasn't very bright, it allowed people to see everything in the fog. Then, Linling's figure flickered out of the light. Come down. A calm voice sounded at the same time. Chapter 4695. One had to know that the laughing Buddha's ancient flaming Buddha bead could burn the earth, but it disappeared after falling into the miasma. But this junior could light up a lamp? Let's go. Elder Yellow Mountain jumped into the abyss without hesitation. Seeing this, everyone was relieved and jumped into the abyss as well. After entering the miasma, they realized how terrifying their surroundings were. They couldn't even see their own fingers, as if they had entered a crack between time and space. Even though they were powerful, they did not dare to do anything in this place. Follow me. If you get separated, you'll have to pray for yourself. Linling led the way, and a soul lamp appeared above his head. What a magical technique! How did he light up the soul lamp? The gods looked at Linling curiously, but they could not tell what kind of divine ability Linling was using. Even Elder Yellow Mountain was the same. No one knew that this was a technique taught to Linling by Old Devil Sangue. This technique existed not long after the Tao realm was opened, so they naturally did not know about it. After all, Old Devil Sangui's first batch of gods were the most familiar with the Tao realm. Get out of the way. Our young lady wants a walk in front. Everyone fell one after another, and little Ing suddenly shouted at Long Yang. Long Yang and Lin Ling were walking in front, and following Lin Ling was undoubtedly the safest. Therefore, little Ing wanted Long Yang and the rest of the 10 orthodoxies to follow at the back. Lin Ling stopped and looked at little Ing coldly. Go to the back. You want me to go to the back? Don't you know who I am? Little Ing was stunned. I don't care who you are, but in this place, I have the final say. Not just you. Even your young lady has to listen to my orders. Now go to the back. Lin Ling shouted again. Go to the back. Emperor Dong Hua and the others immediately said. They did not care who little Ing was. They just wanted to get out of the miasma. But now, Lin Ling obviously did not want to go, so they were anxious. Miss. Xiaoying hurriedly looked at Goddess Yuing. The latter sighed helplessly and said, Xiaoying, you go to the back. Don't delay everyone's important matters. Xiaoying gritted her teeth and glared angrily at Lin Ling. She walked to the back of the line. Walking at the back of the group, it was easy to get lost due to the rolling fog around them. If they got lost, they would never be able to get out again. Long Yang, 10 orthodoxies, follow me. Lin Ling looked at Long Yang and the others, then strode forward. On the other hand, Long Yang and the 10 gate orthodoxies were extremely touched. In front of ancient gods like Elder Yellow Mountain, they had no status at all. However, Lin Ling had fought for their dignity. Although this dignity was very dim, at least they were ranked before these ancient giant gods. This brat really has some ability. Who cares about him? As long as we walk out of the miasma, his brilliance will have ended. An early-stage mid-god is still an early-stage mid-god. That's right. When the time comes, just give him some treasures and send him off. The laughing Buddha, Emperor Donghua, and the others were whispering. As for Elder Yellow Mountain and Goddess Yuing, they were still very surprised. They were suddenly even more curious about Lin Ling. Damn it, this person must be deliberately trying to kill me. What a vicious heart. At the back of the group, Xiao Ying's eyes were ferocious. However, she did not have time to be angry. She quickly caught up with the group, afraid that she would lose them. However, she did not know that Lin Ling did not have time to harm her at all, because she did not deserve it. Look, what's this? As they moved forward, strange scenes appeared around them. Space dust appeared. Except for Lin Ling and Lei Gong, everyone else appeared. This was because Lin Ling and the Thunder God had both passed through the Tao realm miasma barrier once. That was why these phenomena did not appear. And these phenomena reflected everyone's most previous life. It's really him. Lin Ling stared at Elder Yellow Mountain's illusion and nodded. That old man was one of the 5 emperors, Guang Chengxi's disciple, the Yellow Emperor. He was one of the 5 oldest leaders of the human race, and his origins could be traced back to the primordial era. However, other than Lin Ling and Lei Gong, no one paid attention to Elder Yellow Mountain because everyone was paying attention to their previous and current lives. And the feedback of their previous and current lives was obviously more powerful than the feedback of the Netherworld's 3 lives mirror. The 3 lives mirror of the Netherworld could only reflect what happened after they reincarnated. However, here, even their universe dust could reflect it. Little friend, these should be our most previous lives, right? Suddenly, an old voice sounded in Lin Ling's ears. That's right. Except for the God of creation, everything in the world is formed from dust. Senior, you are formed from a long river. This long river existed since the beginning of the world. This means that Senior's origin is not small. Lin Ling also transmitted his voice back. In the distance, Elder Yellow Mountain couldn't help but smile bitterly. He was the one who transmitted his voice to Lin Ling. He didn't expect this to be what was inside the fog barrier. However, he could clearly see that Lin Ling and Lei Gong had no reaction. Moreover, Lin Ling seemed to already know his origins, but his reaction was very calm. This made him feel that Lin Ling was even more mysterious. When you walk out of the fog barrier, you will all receive a chance to be protected by the Tao realm. Lin Ling said again. Thank you, little friend. No, fellow Taoist Lin. Elder Yellow Mountain couldn't help but bow to Lin Ling. As time passed, the illusions around them began to disappear, and everyone woke up. At the same time, a voice sounded in their minds. Everyone had received a chance to be protected by the Tao realm. Great! The gods were incomparably happy. Opportunity, opportunity. 1,000 years ago, I obtained a great opportunity in this mystic realm. 1,000 years later, it's the same. This trip wasn't in vain. Cheers of joy could be heard continuously. Longyang and the 10 orthodoxies were also very excited, especially Longyang. She looked at Lin Ling with a complicated expression because she knew what it meant to have a chance to be protected by the Tao realm. However, Lin Ling had actually rewarded her with such a huge opportunity. Moreover, it was Lin Ling who protected her to enter the Tao realm. At this point, she was already extremely grateful to Lin Ling after removing the initial obsession in her heart. Why? Longyang shook her head secretly. Lin Ling was the first man in her life, but he was also a man she would never forget. After a long time, everyone walked out of the fog barrier. When they looked up, they were already at the bottom of the abyss. The abyss was huge, and the rocks were sharp as if ghosts were baring their fangs and brandishing their claws. Over here, after passing through the fog barrier, the gods were shocked. They ignored Lin Ling and the others and quickly walked along the abyss according to their own search method. Chapter 4696. After saying that, she also chased after Goddess Yuing. What a shameless woman! Longyang stared at Xiao Ying and couldn't help but curse. That's right. If it wasn't for Lin Ling, she wouldn't have been able to enter this place. But now, she's burning the bridge after crossing the river. Most importantly, she got a chance to be protected by a Tao realm cultivator. Can't she even say a word of thanks? The 10 orthodoxies felt indignant for Lin Ling. A chance to be protected by a Tao realm cultivator was hard to come by. It represented a life. This also meant that Xiao Ying's life was saved by Lin Ling. However, in the face of her savior, not only did Xiao Ying not thank him, she even insulted him. Perhaps, if there was a chance, Xiao Ying would get someone to kill Lin Ling. Those laughing Buddha, Emperor Donghua, and the others are also shameless. Lei Gong also said. He naturally saw that after the laughing Buddha and the others came down, they immediately reverted to their disdainful expressions. It seemed that one's ability was one thing, but strength was the most important thing to be respected. They'll beg me one day. Lin Ling didn't care at all. Oh, you. Sometimes you're ruthless, but sometimes you're too kind. It's as if you don't care about anything. Longyang couldn't help but feel indignant for Lin Ling. Look at Xiao Ying. She didn't even take it lying down. Maybe because you helped her get a chance to be protected by a Tao realm cultivator. She'll use it to kill you. Ha ha ha. Longyang, are you worried for me? Lin Ling smiled and looked at Longyang strangely. He no longer had any hostility towards Longyang. After all, they came from the 9 states together. Moreover, Lin Ling and Longyang had known each other for many years. They had interacted in the spirit state. Bullshit. Dragon Lady cursed angrily, but her face was blushing. Don't worry, a lower god is just an ant to me. If I want to kill her, even a Tao realm cultivator's protection won't work. Shaking his head, Lin Ling calmly walked forward. Bullshit. Longyang naturally didn't believe it. Among the crowd, only Lei Gong and the 10 orthodoxies believed in him. This was because they had all witnessed Lin Ling's power. Once the Grand Cosmic Ray was released, no Tao realm cultivator could protect him. Rumble. As they moved forward, a rumbling sound came from the front. At the bottom of the cliff, a large number of giant lizards crawled out. They were very ancient and extremely powerful. These are cosmic beasts. Most importantly, these cosmic beasts possessed strength comparable to a peak mid-level deity. Kill. In the face of such a powerful cosmic beast, the gods also unleashed their full strength. Boom, boom. The cosmic beasts were also constantly smashing down. Why are these cosmic beasts so powerful? It seems that the cosmic beasts have become much stronger when they get close to that treasure. If that's the case, Then the treasure is getting closer and closer. Although these giant lizards were difficult to kill, the thought of the treasures at the end of the line excited them. Oh no, what is that? Suddenly, in the distance of the abyss, an even larger cosmic lizard slowly crawled out. This cosmic lizard had 3 heads, with yin and yang flames blooming. Moreover, the head in the middle was even more terrifying. It was a combination of yin and yang flames. Esoteric flame. That's the esoteric flame formed from the primordial universe's esoteric flame. This guy probably has the strength of a higher deity. The gods' expressions changed drastically. They didn't dare to act rashly as they witnessed the arrival of a large number of cosmic lizards. At this moment, Lin Ling and the rest also walked over slowly as if they were strolling in their own backyard. These shameless people. Xiao Ying was weak, so she naturally stayed behind. When she saw Lin Ling and the rest walking over slowly, she immediately thought that they were doing it on purpose. They were trying to take advantage of the situation. Shameless. When Long Yang and the rest came closer, Xiao Ying couldn't help but curse. Long Yang smiled faintly. Her words made Xiao Ying's face turn green and red, and she was incomparably furious. Ha! You didn't seem to have attack, did you? Then why are you shameless? When they were in the valley, Long Yang had to lower her head when she saw her. Now, however, she was fully fledged. Moreover, although she didn't attack, she was Goddess Yu Ying's maidservant. Her status was much higher than these minor gods. Haha, are you trying to say that you're a subordinate of a certain arch? Please, you're just a maidservant. You're the only one in the world who has such a sense of superiority, even as a maidservant. Long Yang seemed to know what Xiao Ying was thinking, and she continued. She was feeling indignant for Lin Ling, so Lin Ling couldn't be bothered to speak, but she couldn't help it. Long Yang, you've got guts. Xiao Ying shouted angrily. All right, let's cut the crap. However, there were also reprimanding voices coming from the front. Now that the enemy was present, who had the time to bother with these people's quarrels? Of course, they were also very unhappy with Lin Ling and the rest for taking their time. They were just early-stage mid-gods. Shouldn't they be the vanguard? How dare they let these famous ancient gods fight? They really don't know what's good for them. Ignore them. Go. At this moment, Elder Yellow Mountain, who had been silent, suddenly said, Yes. Beside him, a man leaped out, erupting with the strength of a superior god. His divine power was incomparably terrifying, and he even had the divine steps. Great wilderness blood path. That man shouted angrily, and blood spurted out from his body, turning him into a blood man. He struck out with his palm. An incomparably terrifying power erupted. The blood of the universe lizards in front of him flowed backward, and all of it flowed into his palm. What terrifying power! It's the innate ability of a divine fetus. The smiling Buddha and the others' expressions changed drastically. Bang, bang, bang. Seeing the man attack, the universe lizards also began to retreat. They knew how powerful this person was. Only the 3 lizard kings could fight against that man. Want to leave? Blood space. However, that man shouted again. In the sky, countless rays of blood light appeared, enveloping the world. The blood pressure covered the sun and moon, and the stars in the sky shone. Pop, pop, pop. Even if they escaped behind the 3 lizard kings, the blood of the universe lizards still floated out and disappeared into the sky. Then, endless blood rain sprinkled down. The entire abyss had turned into a world of blood at this moment. It was incomparably terrifying. This is the combination of the innate ability of a divine fetus and the divine steps. If such a method lands on us, if we don't have powerful divine power to resist it, I'm afraid our divine blood will be sucked dry. Yeah, but he's a superior god. How can ordinary intermediate gods have enough divine power to resist him? Elder Yellow Mountain's subordinate is already so powerful. He's really a god. Emperor Dong Hua and the others discussed animatedly. Although they had long known that Elder Yellow Mountain was powerful, every time they saw him, they felt that he was unfathomable. What strength! Even Lei Gong and the others were pale. That old man is the most powerful. His strength is comparable to Emperor Shun, Emperor Yao, and the others. Lin Ling wasn't surprised at all and said with a faint smile. Hearing this, Lei Gong's pupils narrowed. Muren also had a guess. Those who could compare to Emperor Shun and the others. Only those few people he knew. Rumble. Chapter 4697. Beast. At this moment, a dignified voice drifted out. An ancient scythe appeared in Elder Yellow Mountain's hand. If you don't submit, don't blame me for being impolite. As soon as the scythe appeared, the three-headed lizard king suddenly trembled all over. Then, it lay down, not daring to submit. I spared your life on account of your difficult cultivation. Now, hurry up and return. Elder Yellow Mountain said again. Then, he waved the scythe in his hand and lightly slashed the head of the three-headed lizard, leaving 3 marks. These 3 marks seemed to engrave the light of servitude. The three-headed lizard gradually shrank and lay on the ground, its ferocity completely gone, as expected of Elder Yellow Mountain. Seeing this, the gods all cheered. The reverence in their eyes came from the bottom of their hearts. That was because he didn't even need to make a move to make the three-headed lizard king submit with just a few words. What kind of divine might was that? What's that side? Lei Gong and the others sucked in a breath of cold air. It's probably the first scythe of mankind. Because he invented the scythe and used it for all living beings in the world, that scythe is very powerful. Lin Ling guessed secretly. In fact, he knew that the scythe's level was not as high as Shangyi's Dongwang Bell. It was inferior to his Quafu Sunchasur boots. However, that scythe had been around for too long and was constantly tempered. Now, it was naturally not weak. Fellow Taoists, you really can't go any further. However, after the three-headed lizard was subdued, suddenly, 2 figures slowly walked out from the depths of the abyss. They were a man and a woman, wearing black and white clothes. Most importantly, with everyone's eyesight, they couldn't see through their cultivation. This is not a place where you can come. The man stared at everyone and said indifferently, "Who are you?" The laughing Buddha and the others were all shocked. They never thought that there would be someone here. Even Elder Yellow Mountain stared at the 2 people and frowned slightly. He couldn't see through their origins. We'll only say the same thing once. You really can't go any further. Just leave. The woman said indifferently, but her eyes were fixed on Elder Yellow Mountain. I know you're very strong, but compared to us, you're still a little weaker. If you take another step, you'll die. The woman looked very ordinary, like a village girl, but her words carried a supreme might. Who do you think you are? We came here with untold hardships, and you think we'll leave just because you say so? Although he couldn't see through the other party's strength, the other party might be deliberately mystic. Then you take another step forward. The woman's face was still calm. His words caused the god to hesitate. Although he wasn't afraid of these 2, he still had to be careful. True God, he's San. Why are you afraid of him? We have so many powerful gods here, and Elder Yellow Mountain is also here. Don't tell me that the 2 of them can do anything. Suddenly, a voice came from behind. It was Xiaoying. At this moment, she looked at the 2 people coldly. She felt that the 2 of them were pretending to be mysterious. Hearing Xiaoying's words, True God, Shan frowned. He felt that Xiaoying's words weren't without reason. It was just one step. If he didn't dare to take another step, others would laugh at him. Bang! He immediately took a step forward and said indifferently, I've already walked out. What do you think? Rumble. Just as he finished speaking, a huge vortex appeared between the woman and the man. The vortex was condensed from gas, and it spun continuously, releasing a power that could control one's soul. A black and white light suddenly shone on True God, Shan's body. He couldn't block it, and all his methods were useless. Then, True God, Shan's body became illusory, as if he had become transparent. What happened? True God, Shan's face was full of anxiety, but in the end, he gradually disappeared into the ground. Of course, before he died, he glared at Xiao Ying with resentment. It was because of Xiao Ying's words that he had acted so impulsively. Qi. Everyone gasped. What a powerful technique. They couldn't see through it at all. Who are these two people? Aren't their divine abilities too terrifying? Elder Huang Shan's expression was grave. He could see that the power from before wasn't the power of God, nor was it the divine fetus, nor was it the divine staircase. Even with his knowledge, he couldn't see through it. This showed that the two people were extraordinary. For a moment, everyone was silent, and no one dared to move. Interesting. I think we've reached the end, Lin Ling said softly. Lin Ling, do you know who those two people are? Lei Gong asked in a low voice. He was scared out of his wits. He thought that the 5 Thearchs were already very powerful, but who knew that the two people who had suddenly appeared were even more powerful? It seemed that his vision was too narrow after all. I'm not sure about their specific origins, but the techniques they used before were on par with my 2 divine abilities, Lin Ling said with a smile. The technique from before was a powerful divine ability on par with Panga's cosmic 3 extremes break. It was a power that surpassed the divine staircase. The great Tao of the universe was as vast as smoke. It had gone through the primordial era, the ancient era, the gods, and the current era. The martial Tao had already undergone many changes and had spread. The current mainstream was the power of a god, the divine fetus, and the divine staircase. However, in the most ancient era, these methods might not have been the mainstream. It was just that those divine abilities had disappeared in the era, and not many people knew about them. Even Lin Ling was only able to obtain the 2 most ancient divine powers by chance. They were formed by the yin, the eye, and the horns. From another perspective, they were formed by the primordial Xianxia of the universe. Naturally, they're not something we can fight against. Lin Ling said indifferently. If Guang Chengzi hadn't guided him, he wouldn't have been able to fight against these powerful existences. Primordial Xianxia of the universe. Lei Gong, Longyang, and the others all frowned. They were very puzzled. This is the spiritual qi that was born in the void of the universe. It is constantly transforming, and it is formed after several eras. Its strength can be said to be invincible, immortal, and indestructible. Except for the most ancient giant gods, no one can do anything to this Xianxia. The primordial Xianxia of the universe is divided into yin and yang qi, which represent life and death. In the past, where the yin qi passed, thousands of worlds were plunged into misery and suffering. Where the yang qi passed, all living things were born. When the yin qi and yang qi combine, the Xianxia will transform. Lin Ling explained slowly. Lei Gong and the others were confused. In the end, they only knew that these two people seemed to be very powerful. Now, is this the only way we can wait? Long Yang suddenly asked. In fact, this was the question Lei Gong and the others wanted to ask the most. After all, they followed along and naturally wanted to encounter some good opportunities. No, because the great Yin-Yang primordial mystery dragon is about to wake up. I'm also waiting for it to wake up. Lin Ling smiled faintly. It was as if he could see the end of the abyss. He was very familiar with the primordial Xianxia of the universe. Sir, I wonder if we can talk. Chapter 4698. Damn it. If not for the fact that these two were so mysterious, the gods would have rushed forward and killed them all. Maybe they're just trying to be mysterious. We must let the weaker gods try again. Emperor Donghua looked at Lin Ling's group with a cold glint in his eyes. He obviously did not believe that there were such powerful existences, so he wanted Lin Ling's group to step on the landmines. You guys come and try. When he thought up to this point, Imperial Lord Donghua said indifferently, Take a step forward and take a look. If you do as I say, then I'll give each of you a treasure. The moment he said that, the laughing Buddha and the others looked at the people from the 10 orthodoxies. This was a good suggestion. If you take a step forward, I'll give each of you a great opportunity. At this time, Lin Ling's voice was heard, directly rejecting the offer. When he brought these people out of the miasma, each of them received the protection of a Tao realm cultivator. Not only were they not grateful, they even wanted Lin Ling to step on the landmines. Speaking of treasures, most of them were given to them by Lin Ling. What did you say? Imperial Lord Dong Hua frowned. The laughing Buddha and the others were also unhappy. Little Ling, on the other hand, was sneering. She did not expect this person to be so arrogant that he dared to oppose Emperor Dong Hua's words. Reckless fool. If we can't defeat these two, we'll have to return empty-handed. I'm only asking you to test it out. You actually dare to be so picky. Don't you think that with your strength, this is the only effect you can bring out? Xiaoying said in a strange tone. Hearing this, Long Yang retorted sarcastically, Lin Ling brought everyone out of the abyss, but you didn't do anything and you're weak. Don't you think you should be the one doing something? Long Yang, what are you talking about? Little Ling was furious. I'm the great emperor's subordinate. Bullsh asterisk T, a maid is a maid. Long Yang smiled disdainfully. All right, stop arguing. I think it's inappropriate to let Lei, Gong Lin Ling, and the others test the waters. It's better to observe the situation for a while. At this time, Elder Huang Shan mediated for Lin Ling and the others. There's no need. The Yin-Yang couple doesn't even need us to do anything. They're dead for sure, Lin Ling suddenly said. As soon as he finished speaking, Elder Huang Shan's eyes lit up, but the others frowned. They had no idea what Lin Ling was talking about. At this moment, the sound of a strong gust of wind was heard. The sound was very loud and deafening. In the depths of the abyss, an ancient aura spread out. Before it appeared, a large number of rocks fell from the cliff. What happened? Everyone's expression changed greatly. As for the yin-yang man and woman, their pupils trembled violently. They looked at each other and wanted to flee. However, as soon as they took a step forward, a tentacle shot over and wrapped around them, binding them tightly. Oh no, he's awake! The yin-yang man and woman cried out anxiously. Swoosh! They could not resist. The tentacle stretched out and pulled them into the depths of the abyss. All of a sudden, there was silence. Boom, boom, boom. Only the sound of the wind was heard. At this moment, everyone swallowed their saliva, feeling that something big had happened. Could it be that that thing has woken up? Suddenly, Emperor Dong Hua's face lit up as he thought of a possibility. As soon as he said that, a huge shadow appeared in the depths of the abyss. The abyss was about 1,000 miles wide, but it was constantly being squeezed open as if the abyss could not accommodate that shadow at all. The entire abyss was also collapsing. Amidst the dust and rocks, the huge shadow became clearer and clearer. It was a monster. It had a whale-like head and a jet-black body. There was an endless beard under its huge mouth, and it looked extremely ancient. However, its body was covered in dragon scales, and its body was like a dragon's. It had black and white dragon claws, and the dragon claws were extremely thick. It slowly walked out. A pair of black and white eyes stared coldly at the crowd. Kacha! Kacha! Most importantly, the huge mouth was moving slightly, and one could vaguely see a leg. However, it was quickly swallowed back, as if the yin-yang man and woman had been swallowed up. What is that? Everyone's expression changed drastically. Despite their vast knowledge, this was the first time they had seen such a monster. Could it be that this is the great yin-yang primordial mystic dragon? Suddenly, the laughing Buddha let out an excited voice. It must be. Although it's no longer in the form of a dragon, the dragon whiskers I obtained from it are still moving. All of this means that this is the great yin-yang primordial mystic dragon. Emperor Dong Hua also laughed excitedly. They had searched for so long precisely for this great yin-yang primordial mystic dragon. This was because the great yin-yang primordial mystic dragon was formed from the universe's mystic chi. Its mystic chi was extremely precious. Back then, they had obtained a large amount of mystic chi from the great yin-yang primordial mystic dragon, and their cultivation had increased tremendously. It was a rare supplement. Has it finally appeared? But why is it so different from back then? However, the great mystic technique of the universe that I cultivate requires the yin-yang essence from it. Elder Huang Shan's eyes also lit up. He was different from the others. He valued the yin-yang essence more than the universe's mystic chi. Haha, old friend, long time no see. Do you still remember us? The laughing Buddha stared ahead and shouted lightly. Back then, they had joined forces to suppress this mystic chi. They had even suppressed it until it could not resist and kept begging for mercy. If not for the fact that they did not want to cut off the source of mystic chi and wanted to obtain mystic chi once every 1,000 years, they would have already suppressed this dragon to death. It was also because they had easily suppressed this dragon time and time again that they did not take it seriously at all. Haha, we're all old friends. Hand over a portion of your mystic chi obediently, and we will spare your life. A god laughed. He was also one of the people who had participated in the 1,000-year promise back then. As for Goddess Yuing and the others, it was their first time here. They were so frightened by the huge figure that their faces turned pale. As for Lin Ling and the others, it was the same. Lei Gong frowned and said, "What a magnificent monster. The mouth of a whale and the body of a dragon. This must be a god formed by the universe." Long Yang nodded and said, "But from the looks of it, they don't seem to be afraid. They probably defeated this monster back then. And it should be more than once." Maha-Orthodoxy said immediately, "Haha, it won't be so simple this time." However, Lin Ling shook his head lightly. Guangxingzi had asked him to help. This meant that the Yellow Emperor could not deal with this dragon. Therefore, there would definitely be a good show to watch. As soon as he finished speaking, the dragon whale-like monster roared loudly. Countless whiskers shot out from its mouth and intertwined with each other, sealing the entire abyss like a net. A large number of tentacles shot toward the god closest to it. Chapter 4699. He waved his hands non-stop, creating one after another barrier imprint after another. This was a seal that they had left in the primordial profound dragon's body when it was still weak. Everyone left one seal so that they could control the primordial mystery dragon in the future. But this time, it was obviously ineffective. The tentacles still shot out, entangling the god, and then piercing through the god's body like a spear. But at the critical moment, the Tao realm protection appeared on the god and took him away. What's going on? As the god was taken away, he shouted in shock. If not for the protection of the Tao realm, he would definitely have died. Everyone frowned, unable to believe their own eyes. However, the god from before had returned again. Obviously, he did not want to miss the treasure on the primordial mystery dragon. Roar! The primordial mystery dragon suddenly opened its mouth, and an ancient suction force was born, blowing towards the god. Whoosh! The god had just returned and was immediately sucked into the primordial mystery dragon's huge mouth. With a crack, the huge mouth closed and blood flowed out. The god was swallowed just like that. Most importantly, even the protection of the Tao realm did not appear this time. As she watched this scene, Xiaoying let out a sharp cry from behind. She was completely terrified. This beast, why is he not afraid of the seals? Everyone seal him together. The laughing Buddha's face was gloomy, and he immediately shouted angrily. Everyone nodded and released their powerful strength, activating the seals left behind in the past. In fact, if not for these seals, they would have already retreated. After all, they could not do anything to the yin-yang couple, let alone this monster. However, the seals from back then gave them confidence. Everyone's seals were different, and they were also the strongest seals they had in their lives. Endless light shot into the sky, and divine talismans and treasures suppressed the monster, causing it to suddenly stop moving. Its mouth was open as if it was dead. We did it! When they saw this scene, everyone smiled, feeling incomparably happy. They did not seem surprised by this result. This dragon is much more powerful than before. Its Xianxia is probably more dense. We got a great treasure this time. A god laughed and said, "Rumble." However, at this moment, the primordial black dragon, which had been motionless, suddenly opened its mouth wide. A terrifying suction force came, and it was as if the entire void was about to be sucked into its stomach. Ka. The abyss completely collapsed and was also sucked into its stomach. I'm awake again. Everyone, be careful. All the deities came to their senses, and panic filled their faces. Among them, a dozen gods couldn't react in time and were sucked into the dragon whale's mouth. With a cracking sound, a large amount of blood gushed out. They couldn't be more dead. Ineffective. Our seal is ineffective. Moreover, its attacks seemed to be able to ignore the protection of the Tao realm. What should we do now? The faces of the remaining gods were all pale, as if they had encountered a great calamity of life and death. They raised their heads and looked around. Only then did they realize that the dragon whale's long whiskers had sealed the entire void, making it impossible for them to escape. Puny humans, you will all die this time. Suddenly, an ancient voice sounded clearly in everyone's ears. He can actually speak. Elder Yellow Mountain's expression became even more solemn. Back then, this dragon whale couldn't speak at all. Even if it had spiritual intelligence, it wasn't very high. Looks like we can't avoid a big battle. I only hope that we can tear apart this space while the mystery dragon is careless and escape from here, Elder Yellow Mountain said with a frown. Even so, he was still reluctant to part with them. The other gods are the same. In the past, they had obtained great benefits from the mystery dragon. This time, they returned empty-handed. How could they not be willing to accept it? They didn't want to leave until the very last moment. They still believed that there was a way to seal the mystery dragon. However, Goddess Yuing, Xiaoying, and the others were retreating. After all, it was their first time here. Long Yang and the others were the same. Lin Ling, let's think of a way to leave. Lei Gong looked at Lin Ling and said, the mystery dragon could ignore the protection of the Tao realm. This was too dangerous. If they were unlucky, they might all be wiped out here. Yeah, Lin Ling, you have a way to leave, right? Long Yang and the others from the 10 orthodoxies also said. They were only lesser deities. What could they do? Leave? I'm here for it. How can I leave? Lin Ling still stared at the mystery dragon and shook his head. Lei Gong and the others narrowed their eyes and were dumbfounded. Even a late-stage middle deity couldn't do anything to that monster. Where did Lin Ling get his confidence from? Oh no, Goddess Yuing, be careful. At this moment, Emperor Dong Hua suddenly roared. Countless tentacles shot out and wrapped around Goddess Yuing. Endless dragon tentacles shot out. Goddess Yuing was intimidated by a powerful aura and could not resist. My lady, the gods beside Goddess Yuing shouted and used their techniques to stop those tentacles. However, a powerful suction force suddenly appeared and landed on those gods, sucking them into the mouth. Then the mouth closed and blood gushed out. The mystical dragon seemed to know that Goddess Yuing had a powerful background. Therefore, it decided to create a diversion. Although it looked like it was attacking Goddess Yuing, it was, in fact, taking care of the late-stage mid-god standing beside her. However, the tentacles still shot towards Goddess Yuing, trying to kill her. In fact, other than being swallowed, the tentacles alone could not kill anyone because the tentacles could not stop the protection of the Tao state. Get over here. Suddenly, Little Ling shouted with a ferocious expression. Her powerful divine energy was like a gust of wind, blowing towards the people from the 10 orthodoxies and pulling them out. She wanted to block the attack for Goddess Yuing. The 10 orthodoxies had more people. Maha-orthodoxy and the others were beside Lin Ling, while the others were closer to Little Ling. Moreover, their strength was not as strong as Little Ling, so they could not resist and were pulled over. You're courting death. Longyang and Maha-orthodoxy shouted at the same time. Beast, don't be so presumptuous. However, at this moment, a huge square cauldron fell from the sky and pressed down on the countless tentacles of the dragon whale. Moreover, an ancient energy was reflected and absorbed the celestial chi on the tentacles. Ignore attack. That person shouted again. He was Elder Huangshan. At the critical moment, he saved the people from the 10 orthodoxies. Unfortunately, he did not see that at that time. Lin Ling already had a small bell in his hand. Just as he was about to attack, he was stopped by Elder Huangshan. Boom! Almost at the same time, two figures soared into the sky and shone with divine light. Chapter 4700. Elder Yellow Mountain, let me help you. At this moment, Emperor Donghua and the others used all their means to seal the mystery dragon again. One powerful attack after another landed on the mystery dragon's body. The gigantic mystery dragon immediately trembled and finally stopped moving. Everyone was breathing heavily and their faces were filled with nervousness. Had they succeeded? Boom. However, before their excited thoughts could be realized, the mystery dragon opened its mouth wide and its whiskers danced wildly. A huge black hole appeared and endless Xianxia gushed out. Whoosh! Under this gale, everything in the abyss turned into dust. Everyone's eyes were blinded by the wind and could not see anything clearly. They could only see a black and white light flashing. This was the essence of yin and yang. Bang! 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 The sound of a large number of meteorites crashing could be heard at the same time. After the gale blew over, everyone saw that the gods who attacked earlier were all heavily injured. Even Elder Yellow Mountain was no exception. It's over, it's over. The Jade Goddess knew that they were completely done for. Lei Gong, Long Yang, and the others were also pale. Even a superior god could not do anything. They were probably not even qualified to be cannon fodder. However, at this moment, Long Yang saw a figure walking out from beside her. This made Long Yang instinctively shout, "Lin Ling, what are you doing?" "Suppress it." Lin Ling smiled and looked at Long Yang. Although the conversation was not loud, everyone heard it because all the gods were silent at this moment. Their pupils trembled as they looked at Lin Ling in disbelief. Their eyes were filled with confusion, shock, disdain, and doubt. Even Elder Yellow Mountain was shocked. One had to know that they had already attacked the mystery dragon with all their might, but they still could not stop the mystery dragon's ferocity. This mystery dragon was so powerful that it made one's hair stand on end. However, an early-stage mid-god had volunteered to fight. Although Lei Gong Lin Ling could bring them into the abyss, no matter how powerful he was no match for the mystery dragon. "Lei Gong, what is Lin Ling doing?" Long Yang was dumbfounded, her face full of worry. She didn't think that Lin Ling was a match for Xianlong. "I don't know either." Lei Gong forced a smile and shook his head. He had the same thoughts as everyone else. However, he also felt that Lin Ling was no fool. If Lin Ling wasn't confident that he could defeat a high god, he wouldn't have dared to step out. "Sir, who are you?" Suddenly, an aged voice reverberated in everyone's ears. The Xian dragon spoke again. The great yin-yang primordial black dragon was formed from the primordial Xianxia of the universe. It takes 500 years to become a horned dragon, 1,000 years to become a flood dragon, 30,000 years to become a rhesus dragon, 1,000,000 years to become a gold dragon, and 30 million years to become a Xian dragon. Lin Ling's footsteps did not stop as he spoke calmly. Reaching the mystic realm in 30 million years, Elder Yellow Mountain's body trembled. He suddenly understood why they couldn't win. Perhaps this great yin-yang primordial mystery dragon had already reached the level of the ancient mighty god. "Who are you?" The aged voice floated out again. Who would have thought that Lin Ling would be so familiar with it? Lin Ling calmly said, "Who I am is not important. I'll spare your life on account of your cultivation. You just need a hand over your mystic chi and yin-yang essence. Dream on." The huge mystery dragon's body trembled. The dragon whiskers under its huge mouth rushed toward Lin Ling like tentacles. Moreover, there were so many of them that it was even more terrifying than before. "Fellow Taoist Lin, be careful." Elder Yellow Mountain instinctively shouted. With Lin Ling's current strength, there was no way he could resist those dragon whiskers. "Lin Ling." In the distance, Long Yang also shouted. The worry on her face was even more intense. What an idiot. Xiao Ying had a gloating expression on her face. Those dragon whiskers quickly wrapped around Lin Ling. There was no way out. Many people shook their heads. He's dead, he's dead. In the end, he could only be taken away by the protection of a Tao realm cultivator. Lin Ling was lucky that he wasn't swallowed by the dragon whale. Otherwise, even the protection of a Tao realm cultivator would be useless. I want to shatter my soul and shake it for millions of years. However, at this moment, a cold voice suddenly floated out. The voice wasn't loud, but it carried supreme divine power and fell clearly in everyone's ears. Everyone's pupils constricted as they stared at the endless dragon whiskers. Then they saw the most unbelievable thing in their lives. Light flickered and shone in all directions. The endless dragon whiskers were incinerated as if they had encountered fire. Amidst the dazzling light, a figure holding a small bell slowly walked out. It was Lin Ling. What a powerful technique. What kind of treasure is this kid holding? He's so outstanding. Everyone's faces were filled with shock, disbelief, and panic. The mystery dragon was formed by the mystic chi of the universe. Even someone as strong as Elder Yellow Mountain couldn't do anything to it. However, a small early-stage mid-god was able to shake the mystery dragon. Luo, 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 Soul Bell. When they looked at Elder Yellow Mountain again, his entire body trembled. He was so excited that he couldn't take care of himself. It was as if he had seen the most unbelievable thing in his life. This was because he knew what it meant to have the fallen soul bell in his hand. Junior. At this moment, the dragon whale opened its huge mouth and an endless suction force came, wanting to devour Lin Ling. Ding dang. However, Lin Ling shook the small bell in his hand, and an ancient power guarded his body and soul. Only Lin Ling knew that the dragon whale's suction and blowing force actually attacked the soul. That was why the people who had been devoured before couldn't be protected by their Tao realm experts. However, the fallen soul bell could protect his soul and prevent it from being damaged at all. Lin Ling held the small bell in his hand and walked towards the dragon whale step by step. It was as if he was stepping into the 9 heavens. There was nothing under his feet, but with every step he took, it was as if he had reached the top of the sky. He walked higher and higher. Who are you? The dragon whale let out a cry of shock. It didn't understand why its divine ability was ineffective. By the time it looked up, the young man from before had already arrived above its head. His blue robe was fluttering in the wind, dazzling like a shooting star, and this kind of grace also fell into the eyes of the crowd. All the gods looked up at Lin Ling. Even the superior gods were no exception. I'll give you one chance. If you don't surrender, don't blame me for being impolite. As if he was standing above the 9 heavens, Lin Ling looked down at the dragon whale. In his hand, a black and white sword appeared. Then he gently slashed. Swoosh! This battle seemed to cut the sky in half and tear the underworld apart. The indestructible Xian dragon was actually cut in half by the sword. Ferocious Xian Qi also exploded, filling the entire space. You can hurt me. At the same time, a panicked voice floated out. It came from the Xian dragon. At this moment, all the gods fell silent, stepping into the 9 heavens, cutting down the Xian dragon with one sword. This scene was probably something they would never forget for the rest of their lives. The second sword. Lin Ling's expression was calm as he spoke again. I'll surrender. I'll surrender. Spare me. Spare me. Endless Xian Qi once again merged into the Xian dragon. It lay on the ground, completely subdued. It didn't know who this blue-robed young man was, but with a small bell in one hand and a divine sword in the other, he was too powerful. Chapter 4701. I submit. I took your celestial qi. Do you submit? I submit. I took your yin-yang essence. Do you submit? Lin Ling asked for the 3rd time. I submit. I submit to all of you. The profound dragon lay on the ground as if it was begging for mercy. All right, I'll spare your life today. Lin Ling nodded. After he spoke, endless celestial qi and yin-yang essence floated over and hovered around Lin Ling. Lin Ling caught it with a jade bottle. Give it to him and some of their celestial qi. After Lin Ling kept the treasures, he pointed at Goddess Yuing, Elder Huang, and Longyang. Celestial qi was formed by heaven and earth. As long as one didn't die, it could be produced endlessly. The profound dragon gave up its celestial chi, but its strength was only weakened. If it cultivated for another 1,000 years, it could still recover to its original state. I'll give it to you. I'll give it to you. The profound dragon didn't dare to refuse. It released a few strands of celestial chi, which landed in the hands of Elder Huang and the others. Lin Ling looked at Elder Huang and thought of his promise to Guang Chengzi. He waved his right hand and gave a small portion of yin-yang essence to Elder Huang. After that, Lin Ling said to the profound dragon, "All right, you can leave now." "Thank you, benefactor. Thank you." The profound dragon began to dissipate, and the surroundings gradually returned to normal. Large rocks continued to fall from the sky. The abyss was no longer there, and the place had turned into ruins. The deities were silent, still reminiscing about the elegance of the sword. They didn't speak for a long time. However, at this moment, a loud voice suddenly sounded. "Good. You actually have a way to subdue the profound dragon. Damn it, you only used it after so many people died. Now that you have so much celestial chi, hand it over." Xiaoying pointed at Lin Ling and scolded him. There weren't many people who had obtained primordial celestial chi, and Lin Ling was the one who had obtained the most. This made Xiaoying unhappy. "Fellow cultivators, this person has a way to subdue the primordial profound dragon, but it doesn't mean that he's very powerful." Xiaoying looked at Emperor Donghua and the others and said, "He's just a small deity. In terms of background, identity, and strength, can he compare to all of you?" His voice was sharp and harsh. "Xiaoying, don't say any more." Goddess Yuing suddenly cursed. "Miss, I want to say that this person is nothing. If you didn't bring him here, he wouldn't have gotten anything. He is nothing." Xiaoying still pointed at Lin Ling and said. However, the eyes of Imperial Monarch Donghua and the others burned with desire. Right, they hadn't obtained anything. The only chance left was the protection of the Dao realm. However, how could they be willing to accept this? Moreover, Liling was right. This Lei Gong Lin Ling had a way to suppress the primordial mystery dragon, but that did not mean he was stronger than them. Lei Gong Lin Ling. When they thought up to this point, Imperial Lord Donghua and the others spoke as well. Their expressions were overbearing. "All of you are so stupid." Lin Ling also looked at Emperor Donghua and the others. There was no panic in his expression. "Haha, cut the crap. You only have one choice now. Hand over your celestial chi and yin-yang essence, and we will let you go." Emperor Donghua sneered and said indifferently, "Otherwise." However, before he could finish, his eyes trembled violently. The primordial mystery dragon that had disappeared earlier had condensed again, turning into a huge dragon whale. It floated behind Lin Ling and looked at everyone with hostility. "Speak, why did you stop talking?" Lin Ling held the small bell in one hand and the divine sword in the other as he looked at everyone indifferently. No one dared to speak. Lin Ling's strength might not be as strong as theirs, but they had all seen how terrifying the primordial mystery dragon was. Silence. Complete silence. On the other hand, Lin Ling floated down and walked toward Xiaoying, his expression incomparably cold. This also made Goddess Yu Ying's expression change. She wanted to say something, but in the end, she held back. Suddenly, Xiaoying felt an inexplicable sense of panic in her heart. But when she recalled the time when she had followed the great emperor, when he had been in charge of the divine world, she suddenly felt confident and a sense of superiority. "You, what are you trying to do?" Xiaoying said coldly. "Slap." As soon as she said that, a slap came and landed on Xiaoying's face. It was Lin Ling's attack. Previously, when Xiaoying used the 10 orthodoxies as cannon fodder to stop primordial Elder Xian, he had already wanted to kill her. Comparing strength? A lower deity dares to be so arrogant in front of me? Lin Ling spat out coldly. Thud, thud, thud. Xiaoying retreated continuously, her face turning green and red. Slap. As soon as she retreated, Lin Ling followed closely behind and slapped her. Comparing status? When I wreaked havoc in Emperor Yao's territory, you were still reincarnating. Slap. Another slap sounded. Comparing background, when I was fighting the 3 divine sects of White Mountain, You had just reached the Tao realm. Slap. The last slap sounded. When Emperor Yao, Emperor Shun, and I were fighting with fire, you were still working on the miasma. When the slap landed, Xiao Ying's expression changed drastically. Her eyes were filled with disbelief. She had always thought that Lin Ling was a nameless god. However, Lin Ling said that he had fought against 2 human leaders alone. Emperor Yao. Emperor Yao was someone more powerful than the Western Heavenly Emperor of Supreme Polarity. You're lying. Xiao Ying's voice was a little flustered. She seemed to have lost her confidence. One person challenging 2 human leaders. Could it be that he's the thunder god Lin Ling who is the talk of the town? I've heard of this person. It can't be him. There are so many gods in the Tao realm. How can someone like him appear in front of us? The gods around narrowed their eyes. They had heard of this matter before. Who is he? Goddess Yu Ying's eyes kept flickering. She did not know why, but she was starting to believe this. Lying to you? You're just blind. Can you see that there's 5 emperors in front of you? Lin Ling shouted again, looking down at Xiao Ying. Fellow Taoist Lin, you have good eyesight. I thought that there were very few people who could see through my identity after so many years. I didn't expect that someone would finally recognize me. At this moment, Elder Yellow Mountain cupped his hands at Lin Ling and smiled. Then, he looked at Xiao Ying and the others and said, I'm one of the 5 emperors, Emperor Yellow. Originally, he did not want to reveal his identity. It was not that he wanted to hide anything, but it was a habit. Now that he took the initiative to reveal his identity, there was only one purpose, and that was to help Lin Ling. Emperor Yellow. The gods were even more shocked. They looked at Elder Yellow Mountain in disbelief. One of the 5 emperors was right beside them. The 5 oldest human leaders, whether it was the Western Heavenly Emperor of Supreme Polarity or Emperor Donghua, were like children compared to him. No wonder Elder Yellow Mountain was so strong. However, the most shocking thing was that Elder Yellow Mountain actually bowed to Lei Gong Lin Ling. This proved Lei Gong Lin Ling's identity and seniority. Chapter 4702. Young Mistress. Young Mistress. Xiao Ying couldn't help but look at Goddess Yu Ying, asking for her help. Goddess Yu Ying knew that things were getting troublesome. She shook her head and said, This is your fault. You'll bear the consequences. When you return, I'll punish you severely. Young Mistress. She seemed to be reprimanding Xiao Ying, but she was actually telling Xiao Ying that she wouldn't die. She would just have to waste 1 Dao Realm protection. Even Dao Realm protection